Chapter 776. Li Daochong had originally planned to kill this guy who had chosen him as his opponent for the sake of pleasing the crowd. However, when Pan Jialua proposed a deal, Li Daochong's interest was piqued. Li Daochong had never cared much about reputation. After all, reputation did not equate to strength. Therefore, to Li Daochong, it was fine as long as he had strength. It did not matter whether the outside world knew about it or not. If he could earn 100 million high-grade spirit stones in 1 minute, why would he not do it? Li Daochong did not need to think about it at all. When Pan Jialua heard Li Daochong's words, his heart skipped a beat. Wasn't that right? If he persisted for 1 minute, the entire spiritual nexus would explode. At that time, he would have as many spirit stones as he wanted. Just the interviews alone would make him a fortune. Pan Jialua hesitated for a few seconds before he gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, deal." Li Daochong looked at Pan Jialua expressionlessly and said, "Let's transfer the money now." "Well, I don't have that much right now." Pan Jialua was telling the truth. "Give me as much as you have." Li Daochong's eyes flashed coldly. "How about 30 million high-grade spirit stones first?" "That's all I have right now." Pan Jialua immediately said, Sure. But you have to pay the remaining 70 million today. If it's not paid by 12, you, the Pan family, and your family's cultivation companies will cease to exist. What do you think? If you think I'm just saying it, you can try." Li Daochong's tone was as calm as a casual conversation, but it was filled with endless killing intent. Pan Jialua was furious. He did not believe that Li Daochong had the ability to do so. However, he suppressed his anger in the end. Transferring money on the spiritual nexus was very easy. Both parties only needed to think about it. The divine sense ripple was a unique identity confirmation. Pan Jialua did not believe that Li Daochong had the ability to deal with the entire Pan family. At the same time, he did not believe that he could defeat Li Daochong. Therefore, the down payment was very straightforward. 30 million high-grade spirit stones were instantly transferred into Li Daochong's account. In the next minute, the competition turned into a seemingly exciting but fruitless battle. When the match was not over in 20 seconds, the spiritual nexus was in an uproar. Disdain for Li Daochong could be found everywhere. The dirty talk that had been suppressed with great difficulty was once again revived. Pan Jialua managed to hold on for a minute and became the first eliminated contestant to be revived. Many of the eliminated contestants who did not choose Li Daochong began to complain, regretting that they did not choose Li Daochong. According to the official rules, the seeded contestants could only be chosen once and could not be chosen twice. In other words, after Pan Jialua chose Li Daochong, no one else could choose Li Daochong as their opponent. This Li Daochong's strength is indeed trash. Shady plot. This is the biggest shady plot of this competition. What exactly does the Jiuxuan spirit sage see in this brat? I want to meet him personally. F***ck. Even I am stronger than him. This competition has been successfully dragged down by Li Daochong alone. Could Li Daochong be the illegitimate son of the Jiuxuan spirit sage? After more than a month, Li Daochong was gradually forgotten. However, after the end of the competition, the commotion caused was several times greater than the previous one. It spread to every corner of the spirit realm. Some of the forces that were optimistic about Li Daochong were greatly disappointed. Kunlun, which was thought to have picked up a treasure, became a laughingstock. Enchantment Empire. Jiuxuan Planet. In the Jiuxuan Divine Palace, several spirit sages were greatly disappointed. Spirit Sage Aurora Light shook his head and said, "Jiuxuan Spirit Sage, this is the hope you spoke of? You can't even take care of a soul formation cultivator?" Spirit Sage Azure Dragon remained silent. After a while, he sighed and said, "Jiuxuan Spirit Sage, even if this brat has great potential, I'm afraid we can't wait that long." Spirit Sage Thousand Hands and Spirit Sage Immortal Sage looked at each other. They didn't say anything, but their eyes were filled with disappointment. The four spiritual venerables all looked at an elegant young girl who was floating in the air barefooted in a green dress not far away. She was looking out of the French window. If an outsider saw this girl without knowing, they wouldn't be able to imagine that she was one of the three supreme cultivators of the spirit realm, Spirit Sage Jiuquan Spirit Sage. With her back to the four spirit sages, Jiuquan Spirit Sage didn't look at the spiritual simulation from the beginning. At this moment, a faint smile hung on her dreamy face. She hasn't changed at all. Jiuquan Spirit Sage's face showed some nostalgia. She was immersed in her own world. As for the reactions of the four spirit sages, she didn't care at all. Jiuquan Spirit Sage knew everything about Li Daochong like the back of her hand, especially what had happened on the Blackwood Star. And she was the only one who knew about this. The Jiuquan divine technique was mysterious and unfathomable. How could a guy who killed 3 demon kings not be able to take care of a soul formation cultivator? Obviously not. Therefore, Jiuquan Spirit Sage didn't need to watch this fight, which Li Daochong obviously didn't want to lose. However, she couldn't accurately judge why Li Daochong didn't want to lose. She could only guess that Li Daochong and Pan Jialuo must have made a deal. The revival competition was originally added at the last minute. Even if Li Daochong and Pan Jialuo made a deal, it wasn't against the rules. Jiuquan Spirit Sage, I don't understand. Why did you lower yourself to meet such a nobody and let this kid enter the prodigy role with your reputation and get such a high ranking? Isn't this too unfair to the other young cultivators? Spirit Sage Thousand Hands, who didn't speak just now, saw that Jiuquan Spirit Sage didn't speak and couldn't help but ask. Jiuquan Spirit Sage, isn't it too hasty for you to assign a samsara token to Li Daochong in advance? I think it's better to give it to someone else. Instead of wasting your energy on this kind of person, it's better to use it on Emochensi, Spirit Sage Immortal Sage said. Say no more. Jiuquan Spirit Sage Palace has 3 samsara tokens. One of them already belongs to Li Daochong. No matter what the result of this competition is, I will give it to him. Jiuquan Spirit Sage Empty Space's voice slowly sounded. The 4 spiritual venerables looked at each other in dismay. All of them looked confused, wondering what had happened to this supreme martial artist. Why would she value this guy who came out of nowhere so much? They had also investigated Li Daochong and knew about his past. Perhaps he was a cultivation genius, but compared to the top geniuses of the 3 great cultivation empires, there was still a big gap. At least, it wasn't to the point where he could get a samsara token. There were only 21 samsara tokens in total. The 3 great cultivation empires each had 7. The Kuan Empire had 7 samsara tokens. 3 of them were in Jiuquan Spirit Sage Palace's hands. She naturally had the final say on how to deal with them. However, the samsara token was very important. It was the pass to enter the 6 paths hidden realm after entering the samsara road. Only the strongest 21 young cultivators in the human domain spiritual realm could use it to its full potential. Otherwise, it would be a waste. The samsara road only opened once every 100 years. Every opportunity was very precious. How could they just give it to a nameless and powerless brat? However, Jiuquan Spirit Sage Palace always kept her word. The 4 spirit sages knew that this half-immortal had already made up her mind. It was useless to say anything. Qian Song Empire. Penglai Planet. A secluded valley was isolated by a huge protective shield. Outside the protective shield, spiritual energy was everywhere. It was like a fairyland. The concentration of spiritual energy was more than 25%. However, inside the protective shield, it was gloomy and dead silent. It was like Hades. Demonic chi filled the valley. Dozens of demon general nether demons that had been refined into demon puppets were drooling. Their eyes were red and they were filled with murderous intent. Dozens of pairs of demonic eyes stared at a young cultivator in golden robes in the middle of the valley. There were so many demon puppets. Any one of them was enough to flatten any cultivation country outside of the three great cultivation empires. With dozens of demon puppets attacking at the same time, the three great cultivation empires would have to put in a lot of effort to get rid of them. At the edge of the valley, there were several young cultivators with extraordinary auras. There were both men and women. They were all looking at the golden-robed cultivator in the valley with great interest. These young cultivators looked at the dozens of demon puppets. In their eyes, these terrifying demon puppets were just a bunch of cultivation tools. Dealing with 57 demon puppets at once. They are all beginner demon general strength. Golden Pung really dares to play. And Gu crossed her arms in front of her chest and watched the show. Big Brother Wei, will he be injured? A young girl in a pleated skirt asked worriedly. The young girl was called Qing Yuner. She was ranked 7th on the Qiantang Empire Genius ranking. He probably won't be injured, but it will take a lot of energy to get rid of these devil puppets. Wei Jinpeng has always regarded the spirit Venerable Nine Xian as his dream lover. When he heard that the spirit Venerable Nine Xian had personally received a guy named Li Daochong, he was in a bad mood. He has been cultivating like a madman for the past 2 to 3 months, just to attract the attention of the spirit Venerable Nine Xian during the competition. His jealousy is not ordinary. We have been here for a few days, but he turned a blind eye to us. Chao Lingtian ranked 6th on the Qiantang Heaven Genius ranking. Wei Jinpeng's ambition is comparable to his name. The great rock spreads its wings and hates that the sky is too low. He actually wants to woo a Nine Xian spirit sovereign. Liao Wuji had a look of astonishment. Liao Wuji ranked 8th on the Qiantang Heaven Genius ranking. These few people were all people who could call the wind and summon the rain in the Qiantang Empire. Apart from the old monsters who rarely moved around and the spiritual sage, they were all at the pinnacle of the cultivation world. They were the few people who stood at the top of the cultivation pyramid. Most importantly, they were all very young. None of them had a bone age of more than 30. Just at that moment, a deafening cry that pierced through the sky rang out. The entire planet trembled. A golden light flashed. A golden pring image rose up from the back of the golden shirt teen. The golden shirt teen was Wei Jinpeng, who wanted to chase after a Jiuxuan spiritual sage. He was ranked 2nd on the Qiantang Heaven Genius ranking, just below Han Po. The entire valley was instantly lit up by the golden flames. Dozens of demon puppets in the air gave out terrifying cries, surrounding and attacking Wei Jinpeng at the same time. However, before these demon puppets were able to attack, the golden pring had already swept past. Wei Jinpeng held a giant sword and charged into the sky. King, a sword light slashed across. The dozens of demon puppets were lit up by the golden flames and were split into 2. Before it even landed, it had already been burned to ashes and disappeared without a trace. See. The surrounding geniuses sucked in a cold breath. They didn't expect Wei Jinpeng to instantly kill dozens of demon puppet. Chao Lingtian, Wei Jinpeng's strength has reached another level. Liao Wuji stuttered. Jade Clear Great Void Republic. Wuho Planet. On some plains, dozens of lizard beasts were peacefully eating ferns and trees. The lizard beasts were over 50 meters long and had 4 claws on the ground. They weighed 40 tons. Although they were herbivorous beasts, they looked really fierce and were the overlords of the plains. Every step they took would cause the ground to tremble. There were many herbivorous spirit beasts around. Not far away, beside a giant rock, a dragon-toothed giant claw wolf was staring at one of the spirit beasts, waiting for a chance to attack. Dong, dong, dong. Just at that moment, heavy footsteps could be heard. The ground started to tremble, and then it became more and more intense. It was like an earthquake. All the spirit beasts in the area were terrified. At first, they thought it was the lizard beasts moving. However, when they looked up, none of them were moving. Soon, a small mountain slowly rose from the other side of the horizon. As the earthquake became more and more intense, the small mountain moved faster and faster. The small mountain left the ground, and there was a small black dot below. Looking closely, one could see a dark-skinned teen wearing gray linen clothes. He looked like a farmer planting rice in the field. He was the one carrying the small mountain forward. Chapter 777. Every time the dark-skinned youth took a step, a large hole would appear in the ground. The Wuho star was the hardest cultivation planet in the entire human domain's spirit realm. The entire planet was rich in black gold, star soul crystals, and gung silver diamonds. These three types of magic gold were all extremely hard metals in the spirit realm. But under the dark-skinned youth's feet, this solid cultivation planet didn't seem that hard. The dark-skinned youth's feet moved faster and faster, and the ground shook more violently. Dozens of kilometers away, a dam upstream of a small cultivation city collapsed. After 5 days and 5 nights of torrential rain, the dam couldn't bear the burden. Because of geography, too much water had seeped into this area, and the soil had become abnormally soft. Finally, the dam couldn't bear the surging flood. Boom! The dam was destroyed. The mountain torrents poured down like furious beasts from the heavens. In addition to the true cultivator town downstream, there were more than 10 towns on the same line. The largest city had a population of several million, and most of them were mortals. It was easy for cultivators to evacuate, but not so easy for ordinary people. Even if everyone evacuated, the city would be destroyed by the mountain torrent. Although the Wuho star was the hardest cultivation planet, its level was very low, and the spirit energy here was very thin. If it wasn't for the rich magic gold ore, there would be almost no cultivators here. The Wuho star's level was even lower than the Blue Bay star, and it was a 5th-class cultivation planet. Foundation establishment cultivators here were enough to be at the top of the pyramid. Therefore, the locals had no ability to stop this kind of catastrophic mountain torrent. In fact, the torrential rain caused all kinds of birds and beasts in the valley to flee, causing the beast tide to be like a sea for the past 5 days. Just resisting the attacks of these frightened beasts consumed most of the energy of the local cultivators. There were countless casualties. When the mountain torrent poured down, there wasn't much energy left to stop it. They could only watch as the torrent poured down. More than 10 transport shuttles were floating in the air, carrying everyone in the nearest city. These transport shuttles were used to transport magic gold ore. Everyone leaned against the window and looked down. Everyone was heartbroken as they watched their home about to be swallowed by the mountain torrent, and there was nothing they could do. At this moment, "Huh, what's that?" Someone saw a small mountain moving and said in surprise, "Fellow Taoist Lan, do you feel it?" A gray-robed old man's eyes were filled with shock. He was one of the 3 late Foundation establishment stage cultivators on the Wuho planet. "I felt it." The middle-aged man in blue beside the gray-robed elder had a solemn look on his face. "Could it be that the higher-ups have sent someone to help us control the flood?" The gray-robed elder was confused. It shouldn't be. A small place like the Wuho star wouldn't be able to attract the attention of the higher-up. The blue-clothed middle-aged man shook his head. While the two of them were chatting, the small mountain suddenly rose into the air, moving faster and faster. Then, the hill seemed to be flung away by an invisible giant hand. Boom! The small mountain accurately smashed into the mouth of the river where the mountain torrents poured down, sealing the river. Half of the small mountain sank deep into the ground, and the other half was exposed. The mountain torrent was blocked just like that. The hill formed a temporary dam, which was many times stronger than the dam that had collapsed. Only then did the gray-robed elder and the blue-clothed middle-aged man see clearly that there was a small black dot floating in the air where the small mountain had smashed down. Looking closely, they saw that it was a young man dressed like a farmer. The dark-skinned young man looked at the blocked river with a displeased look on his face. He clapped his hands and muttered to himself, "Can't even comprehend the power of the stars. What a bummer." As he spoke, The dark-skinned young man landed on the small mountain and threw a punch at the river upstream. Boom! The torrent that was pouring down was pierced through by a terrifying force. The water in the river evaporated and dissipated. When the gray-robed elder and the blue-clothed middle-aged man saw this, their jaws dropped to the ground. To a Foundation establishment stage cultivator, this kind of power was unimaginable. It was more than enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The dark-skinned young man's cultivation was interrupted by the mountain torrent. He looked like he wanted to chop the mountain torrent into pieces. Whoosh! The sound of space being torn apart could be heard. In the air less than 10 meters above the dark-skinned young man, an elegant young man wearing a robe with the Qinghe Mountains and Rivers pattern on it appeared out of thin air. The dark-skinned young man looked up and was stunned. He hurriedly put away his displeased look and cupped his fists. "Greetings, Senior Apprentice Brother Qinghe." If those knowledgeable cultivators of the cultivation world were to see this young man, they would definitely be shocked. He was the #1 prodigy of the Jade-Clear Great Void Republic, Yu Qinghe. "You want to compete here?" The elegant young man looked down at the dark-skinned young man and asked. "I just want some peace and quiet," the dark-skinned young man replied. "Great Ancestor asked you to go back," Yu Qinghe said indifferently. "Got it. I'll have to trouble Senior Apprentice Brother Qinghe to make a trip here." The dark-skinned young man was unwilling, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Yu Qinghe didn't say anything else. He stretched out his hand and drew a line in the air. The space was cut open and a door opened. He stepped into it and disappeared. The dark-skinned young man curled his lips. He didn't dare to hesitate and stepped into the spatial door. Then the spatial door closed and disappeared as if it never existed. The people on the transport shuttles stared at this scene in shock. When Yu Qinghe and the dark-skinned young man disappeared, those mortals all knelt down. Immortals have appeared. Immortals have appeared. The information on a Grade 5 cultivation planet was limited. There were very few cultivators, and those who came to mind weren't very strong. The abilities of a Foundation establishment cultivator were limited in the first place. They were not powerful enough to summon the wind and summon the rain, let alone stop a flood of such a terrifying scale on their own. Li Daochong didn't win against Pan Jialua in a minute. Not only did it cause a huge uproar in the outside world, but the people around him also didn't understand. When Li Daochong logged out of the spiritual nexus, Cherry Blossom Gauze immediately appeared in front of him. "Master, why did you let that guy win? In the Hades, no matter how strong the opponent is, we will do our best to eliminate them." Cherry Blossom Gauze looked at Li Daochong with a doubtful expression. Although Cherry Blossom Gauze had followed Li Daochong in the human domain for so many years, she still didn't understand many of the ways humans did things. In Cherry Blossom Gauze's eyes, Pan Jialua was just an ant. Li Daochong didn't even need to do anything. He could destroy him with just a look. Harmony breeds wealth. Li Daochong smiled and spat out these 5 words. Cherry Blossom Gauze was dumbfounded, not knowing what he meant. The first thing Silver Bottle asked after logging out of the spiritual nexus was, "Young master, why did you do this?" Li Daochong smiled without saying anything. He pointed at Silver Bottle's wristwatch and gave her a look. Silver Bottle didn't understand. She looked down at her wristwatch and seemed to understand something. She opened her account. There were an extra 30 million high-grade spirit stones. Silver Bottle immediately understood and smiled. "Young master, you're really good at doing business. That's fine." Li Daochong touched his nose and said with some interest, "That's right. I'm an unscrupulous businessman." Cherry Blossom Gauze didn't understand the conversation between the two, and she was even more confused when she saw Silver Bottle smile. Silver Bottle saw Cherry Blossom Gauze's confusion. In order not to make Wu Ho's head explode, she patiently explained to her. After the explanation, Cherry Blossom Gauze still didn't understand. "You can deliberately not win for the sake of spirit stones? What about the prestige you've lost?" Li Daochong said with a smile. I'm not the head of a country, and I'm not the ancestral spiritual lord. What's the use of prestige? Okay. Cherry Blossom Gauze still didn't agree with Li Daochong's actions, but she knew that it was useless for her to argue, so she could only give a perfunctory reply. At this moment, Xiao Ying was sitting alone in her room, her heart aching. How could Master not defeat that idiot in 1 minute? Li He and Li Ling also didn't understand. Many people in Kunlun knew that they were with Li Daochong, and the strange looks from all around them made them very uncomfortable. Li Daochong didn't care about the outside world or the people around him. He only cared about when the remaining 70 million high-grade spirit stones would be transferred to his account. A day passed quickly. However, the numbers in the account showed no signs of change. Pan Jialua's interviews continued to appear, and several cultivation companies even wanted him to be their spokesperson. Pan Jialua quickly became a well-known figure, and he was a positive example. Li Daochong became a negative example, and was despised by everyone. They thought that he had relied on Jiuxuan's spiritual lord to achieve such a high ranking. Li Daochong was very angry that he still hadn't received the final payment. When night fell, Li Daochong had already locked onto Pan Jialua's whereabouts. He was in Kunlun Planet. Li Daochong's figure disappeared in a flash. In a certain high-end hotel in Kunlun City, Pan Jialua and his family were waiting in a business suite. They were drinking and counting money until their hands were cramping. In half a day, Pan Jialua's account had increased by more than 50 million high-grade spirit stones, and more spirit stones would automatically flow into his pocket. Young master, you're so wise. Li Daochong would never know that you have the Cloud Jade Vestments limited edition Night Charm vestment. There are only a dozen of them in the entire Kuan Empire. This is a heavenly mystic high-grade vestment that can completely conceal one's aura. Even a fusion stage old demon wouldn't be able to detect it. A high-ranking servant of the Pan family raised his wine glass and flattered. Hee, that kid is an idiot. He even dared to threaten me, saying that he would wipe out the Pan family and the cultivation companies under them. Let's not talk about whether he has the ability to do so. Even if he did, would he dare to do so? At this juncture, whoever dares to touch a contestant is courting death. I'm now a seeded contestant in the finals, and my status is different. Besides, is our Pan family a pushover? The Grand Elder and the Great Ancestor are both here. They're both void refinement stage cultivators, and they can kill that kid in a matter of minute. Pan Jialua was obviously a little drunk, and his speech was slurred. He was hugging two beautiful women on both sides of him. That's right, that's right. The Great Ancestor is resting in the next room, a follower echoed. Young master, let's find some time to hire a Dark Knight assassin and get the 30 million back from that kid with interest, another follower said. Pan Jialua's eyes lit up, and he slapped the follower on the shoulder. The follower was so scared that he almost jumped out of his chair. What's your name? You're quite clever. I didn't even think of that. This idea is good. Now, if you want to make money, you can indeed hire a Dark Knight assassin and get back at him. That kid Li Daochong dares to fight with me. It's good to let him know what's good for him, Pan Jialua praised. Knock knock. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Who's so ignorant? Don't you know that I'm holding a banquet? Pan Jialua said unhappily. Knock knock. A follower scolded, but it was useless. The door was still knocked on. Seeing that he couldn't drive the person away, the follower got up and opened the door while cursing. F***ck. The follower opened the door and cursed, but he swallowed the rest of his words. Standing outside the door was the Pan family's great ancestor, Pan Boju, and the great elder, Pan Xiang. The follower was dumbfounded. Great ancestor. Pan Boju's eyes were blurred at first, but suddenly there was a flash in his eyes. He snorted coldly. Get out of the way. The follower was sent flying by the powerful sound wave and slammed into the table behind him. The room suddenly became quiet. Pan Jialua was furious. He stood up and was about to explode, but when he turned around and saw the great ancestor and the great elder, his face froze. Slap! Pan Boju gave Pan Jialua a big slap without any explanation. Great ancestor. Pan Jialua covered his face in confusion. You still have the face to call me that? Kneel down. Pan Boju's face was gloomy. Pan Jialua hesitated. Crack! Pan Jiaju kicked out and broke Pan Jialua's legs. Thump! Pan Jialua knelt on the ground. His facial features were twisted together. The piercing pain almost made him faint. At this moment, he was no longer as arrogant as before. He was like a stray dog, terrified and uneasy. He didn't know what he had done wrong. The followers were so frightened that they retreated to the wall and lowered their heads in silence. A few flirtatious women curled up on the ground. They were ordinary people and didn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of cultivators. Pan Jialua, did you forget something? A somewhat leisurely voice came from outside the door. Pan Jialua was even more confused when he heard this voice. Li Daochong slowly walked in from outside the door. Chapter 778. Great Ancestor, he's the one who extorted spirit stones from me. As soon as Pan Jialua saw Li Daochong, his heart skipped a beat, and his first reaction was to complain to the Great Ancestor. Pan Jialua was not stupid. He knew that he was no match for Li Daochong, but he did not think that Li Daochong was very strong. He was just a little stronger than him. In short, it was impossible for him to be ranked 46th on the list of geniuses. Slap! As soon as Pan Jialua finished speaking, Pan Boju slapped him again. Pan Jialua was dumbfounded by the first slap, but he guessed that the Great Ancestor was displeased that he was still indulging in debauchery before the competition. However, he was really dumbfounded by the second slap. You've disgraced the Pan family, and you still have the cheek to talk about it, Pan Boju rebuked angrily. Great Ancestor. Pan Jialua felt terrible. When Li Daochong walked over, Pan Boju and Pan Siang bowed at the same time and said in unison, Greetings, Master Li. What? Pan Jialua stared at this scene, and his mind went blank. Li Daochong glanced at Pan Jialua coldly and shot out a ray of mental force. The latter groaned and sat on the ground. Pan Jialua was like a dead dog. Apart from his eyes, his whole body seemed to be frozen. Li Daochong looked down at Pan Jialua and said indifferently, I told you that you must get the money before tonight. Otherwise, there is no need for the Pan family to exist. You must be honest, otherwise, what's the difference between you and a demon? Pan Jialua looked at Li Daochong in disbelief. He did not know what kind of spell he cast on the Great Ancestor and the Great Elder to make these two void refinement realm cultivators listen to him. Master Li, let me kill this unfilial son. Pan Boju was exasperated. He raised his hand and was about to attack Pan Jialua. Pan Jialua was so frightened that his eyes popped out. He wanted to say something, but he could not make a sound. There's no need to kill him. He just qualified for the finals. It would be a pity if he died. Let him participate in the competition. Li Daochong's lips curled into a sinister smile. Pan Jialua heaved a sigh of relief. At least he wouldn't die. Master Li, the Pan family's assets will be transferred to the Li Group within 3 days. The other independent cultivation companies will also be merged, Pan Siang said. As he spoke, Pan Siang's eyes were lifeless, like a walking corpse. Well, I'll leave this matter to you. Li Daochong nodded. Hearing this, Pan Jialua's eyes shone with incomparable astonishment. He seemed to have fallen into a state of confusion, not knowing what had happened. Li Daochong used his telekinesis, and Pan Jialua's body relaxed. He felt dizzy and could speak again. Great Ancestor, Great Elder, you. Pan Jialua was confused. You still have the face to call me Great Ancestor? Scram! From today onwards, the Pan family no longer has an unfilial son like you. Pan Boju acted as if he didn't recognize Pan Jialua. Pan Jialua took out a spirit pill and swallowed it. His broken legs recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ordinary external injuries could be healed in an extremely short period of time with spirit medicines and spirit liquid. Pan Jialua took a deep look at Li Daochong. There was a trace of indescribable fear in the depths of his eyes. He didn't understand what had happened. Why were the great ancestor and great elder so afraid of Li Daochong? No, not afraid. They had completely surrendered. A few minutes ago, Pan Jialua was still the young master of the Pan family. A few minutes later, he was kicked out of the house. No one could understand. Pan Jialua didn't know that the great ancestor Pan Boju and great elder Pan Xiang were just two slightly bigger ants in front of Li Daochong. He didn't even need to make a move. He could control the two of them with just a thought. Li Daochong was being extremely benevolent by not killing them. Of course, he only wanted money, not lives. In a few days, the Pan family would fall apart and cease to exist. Most of the assets would flow into the pockets of the Li group. He didn't kill Pan Jialua because Li Daochong wanted to kill him in front of everyone in the finals. After Pan Jialua left the hotel, his heart was filled with resentment and hatred. Li Daochong, Pan Jialua, am not a human if I don't tear you to pieces. Pan Jialua clenched his fists and looked at the night sky. 2 or 3 hours later, he landed in a farm on the outskirts of Kunlun City. An old woman came out of a small wooden house. Who are you? I'm Pan Jialua. I want to buy the spirit explosion pill. Oh, it's you. Didn't you just buy the spirit enhancement pill last time? It's only been a month, and now you want the spirit explosion pill? Senior, isn't your company only doing business without asking for the reason? Well, I'm asking. Do you know the price of the spirit explosion pill? 20 million high-grade spirit stones. Do you have enough spirit stones? Pan Jialua casually tossed over his storage bag. The old woman took it, scanned it with her divine sense, and nodded in satisfaction. Then, she tossed a small bottle to Pan Jialua. There are 2 spirit pills inside. The black one is the spirit explosion pill, and the white one is the body consolidation pill. Take the body consolidation pill first, then take the spirit explosion pill a day later. In less than 2 hours, your cultivation will triple. This pill has no side effects, but from today onwards, your cultivation will not change at all. Not even Origin Immortal Arts can reverse it. Think carefully about whether you want to take it or not. Pan Jialua looked at the small bottle in his hand, a vicious smile on his face. Li Daochong, you provoked this young master. This young master will ruthlessly trample on you in the finals and take back what I lost. Then, I'll make you wish you were dead. The 3 days of the preliminaries quickly passed. 60% of the young cultivators participating in the preliminaries were eliminated. Out of 10 people, only 4 could defeat the simulated spirit beast. And in the revival round, only Pan Jialua managed to advance. None of the others could last more than a minute in front of the seeded contestants. For a moment, Pan Jialua became the target of envy of all the eliminated contestants. They all felt that he was extremely lucky. In fact, Pan Jialua was not the only one who secretly wanted to make a deal with the seeded contestant. There were many people who wanted to use spirit stones to bribe the seeded contestant. It was just that every seeded contestant had the support of a powerful force behind them. Furthermore, they were the focus of the cultivation companies they belonged to and were given all kinds of cultivation resources. The seeded contestants did not lack spirit stones at all. The seeded contestants did not care about the bids of the young cultivators participating in the revival round at all. Moreover, this was a matter of reputation. They did not lack money, so there was no need to cheat. Li Daochong's situation was special. Joining Kunlun was only temporary, so he had to rely on himself. He did not intend to rely on Kunlun in the first place. Besides, Li Daochong did not care much about reputation, so he agreed to Pan Jialua's bid. After the preliminaries, there was a day of rest. The next day, the finals were about to begin. On this day, the entire spiritual realm's attention was focused on the first spiritual realm youth cultivation competition. Everyone was inexplicably excited, as if they were watching the Olympics in the 80s and 90s. But early in the morning, the organizers did not make any moves. All the young cultivators who had qualified for the finals were quietly waiting for the notice. Because of the large number of participants, from the beginning there was no specific location for the competition. Basically, most of the participating cultivators were on standby on their own cultivation planet. The preliminaries were held on the spiritual net, and there were no geographical restrictions. As long as one could log on the spiritual net, they could participate. The organizers did not give any notice about the finals, nor did they say that it would be held on the spiritual net. The morning passed quickly. There was still no movement. The participants on hundreds of millions of cultivation planets gradually began to become restless. The entire spiritual realm began to stir. People did not know what was going on. Did something happen to the organizers and those spiritual venerables? Otherwise, why was there no movement until now? This was the first time in the history of the human race that such an important competition had ended before it started? If so, this competition would be the biggest joke in history. Just as the commotion was getting more and more intense, in the spiritual realm of the human realm, all the cultivation planets that met the cultivation standards suddenly burst into dazzling light in the sky. A gap seemed to be opened in space. 9 rays of light shot out from it and formed a 9-pointed star pattern on the ground. In an instant, everyone was stunned. Kunlun planet. In the Kunlun spirit pagoda. Li Daochong, Yin Ping, and the others waited quietly. Li Daochong was also wondering why it had not started yet. When the light appeared in the sky, Li Daochong was taken aback. The place where the light appeared on Kunlun planet was not far from Kunlun city. It could be seen from the Kunlun spirit pagoda. When the light shot out, Cherry Blossom Gauze's delicate body suddenly trembled. The nether energy in her body seemed to be deterred, and she almost lost control and exposed her true body. Fortunately, Li Daochong reacted quickly. He immediately used his divine thoughts to help Cherry Blossom Gauze resist most of the impact of the light. Otherwise, Cherry Blossom Gauze would not be able to resist it. Thank you. Cherry Blossom Gauze looked at Li Daochong gratefully. In fact, not only Cherry Blossom Gauze, everyone else could feel the great pressure brought by the light. It made them feel irresistible awe and worship it as if they had seen an immortal descending to the mortal world. Not long after the light appeared, a boundless voice sounded above all the stars. This voice was unfamiliar to most people, but it was very familiar to some high-level cultivators and elites. It was the voice of one of the 35 spirit supremacies in the spirit world of the human land, the immortal spirit supremacy. Jiuxuan spirit supremacy has projected the Jiuxuan divine light in the human land spirit world. All the young cultivators who are qualified for the finals enter the 9-pointed star area of the Jiuxuan divine light as soon as possible. Inject your primordial spirit and spirit power into the starlight. Your body will fall into a state of hibernation in the starlight. Your divine soul will enter the divine realm of the Jiuxuan divine light. To ensure that all the participants can enter the divine realm of the Jiuxuan divine realm, there will be a 2-day break. 2 days later, the first youth cultivation competition will officially begin. In addition, those who are not qualified for the competition are not allowed to enter the Jiuxuan divine light. Otherwise, their souls will be destroyed. The immortal spirit supremacy's voice kept repeating these words in everyone's spiritual sea. There were hints and warnings. The boundless voice was vast and ethereal, but it was full of energy. Hearing the immortal spirit supremacy's voice, Li Daochong felt incredulous. He had experienced so much. He had seen so many powerful self-cultivators and nether ghosts of the Hades. Among them, There were even devil kings who had almost touched the top of the Hades. But at this moment, Li Daochong was still shocked by the Jiuxuan spirit supremacy and the immortal spirit supremacy. One of them could project a terrifying divine light on countless stars. What kind of magical power was this? It was already beyond the scope of Li Daochong's knowledge. The other was transmitted to everyone's spiritual sea. What kind of terrifying psyche power was this? Compared with the 3 devil kings that Li Daochong had encountered, the 2 spiritual supremacies were much more powerful. In this way, what kind of existence were the supreme devil of the Hades and the devil emperor? He seemed to have a clear reference. Li Daochong had never felt so small. When he stepped into the voiding realm, he thought that he had touched the ceiling of the real high-level self-cultivators, but now he found that it seemed that he had not even touched the floor. Chapter 779. Now was not the time to be emotional. Li Daochong was not only curious about the reincarnation road. His purpose in participating in the competition was to see how strong the genius cultivators of the human realm spirit realm were. From the moment Li Daochong woke up until now, except for the initial difficulties, most of the later stages were scares without danger. Later on, more danger came from the battle with the dark ghost. Li Daochong had seen many genius cultivators, but unfortunately, they were all good-for-nothings. In the Shenghua Federation, Li Daochong had never seen a real powerhouse of the same age and level. Wei Ziying, a top genius of the Federation, was not amazing. Of course, the Shenghua Federation could not represent the human realm spirit realm. It was only a small part of the entire spirit realm. Now that he could look at the entire human realm spirit realm, Li Daochong was full of expectations. "I'll go first." Before he finished speaking, Li Daochong had already turned into a ray of light and shot out of the Kunlun spirit tower. Before Silver Bottle, Xiao Ying, Li He, and Li Ling could react, Li Daochong had disappeared. This was a competition between young cultivators, not a life-and-death battle. Therefore, Li Daochong did not have to worry about the safety of Silver Bottle and the others. With the Jiuxuan Spirit Sage and the Immortal Spirit Sage presiding over the competition, no one dared to interfere. Moreover, Li Daochong did not want them to rely on him. Letting them face it independently was also a kind of cultivation. The Jiuxuan Divine Light was not far from Kunlun City. Li Daochong flew at his fastest speed and arrived within the range of the Jiuxuan Divine Light in less than 10 seconds. Li Daochong did not hesitate and plunged into the Divine Light without slowing down. According to the Immortal Spirit Sage's instructions, Li Daochong injected his essence spirit and spiritual power into the Jiuxuan Divine Light. The next moment, a white light flashed in front of Li Daochong's eyes in less than a quarter of a second. A new world appeared in front of Li Daochong. The first thing that came into view was a city of cultivators. In the center of the city, there was a tall building with 4 large words flashing on it. 6th Imperial Capital. The mountains, forests, canyons, grasslands, and rivers around the city were exactly the same as the outside world. Li Daochong's divine sense was unable to detect any difference between these landforms and the real world. Before he came in, Li Daochong had thought that it would be a simulated world similar to the spiritual nexus. Now it seemed that it wasn't, at least not completely. It was more like a spiritual world made of energy. People were constantly being teleported in from all over the void. Everyone was shocked by what they saw. However, the young cultivators who were able to enter the finals were all experienced and knowledgeable. Soon, they recovered from the shock and rushed into the magnificent self-cultivator city in front of them. Li Daochong was one of the first contestants to enter the Jiuxuan realm. According to the Immortal Spirit Venerable, there was a time limit of 2 days for all the contestants to enter. Those who entered first would have 2 days to prepare. Obviously, the contestants who entered first would have the upper hand. At least they could learn more about the characteristics of the surrounding environment. Li Daochong looked around and after using his divine sense, he flew into the 6th imperial capital. Why was such a majestic city of cultivators set up? What kind of method would the finals be played out? It was unknown at the moment. As soon as Li Daochong entered the city, he descended from the sky and observed the city on foot. A large number of young cultivators were constantly pouring into the empty city. Everyone soon discovered that apart from the fact that there was no one in the city, everything else was available. Residential buildings, commercial buildings, skyscrapers, banks, weapon refining stores, elixir stores, talisman stores, everything was available. It was exactly the same as the outside world. Not only that, the various stores were not empty. The shelves and counters were full of goods waiting to be sold. Li Daochong walked on a main street. At first, there weren't many people, but in just 10 minutes, a large number of young cultivators poured into the street. The stores on both sides of the street were quickly occupied. At first, everyone was just observing curiously. They didn't dare to touch the various items displayed in the stores. However, there were always a few daring people who dared to break the restrictions and become the first to eat crabs. Li Daochong didn't enter any of the stores. He just walked around casually. He had already used his divine sense to scan the area. The items in these stores weren't attractive to Li Daochong. Heavens! A high-grade arcane insight magic treasure is just casually placed on the shelf. Isn't this too wasteful? A young cultivator with a stocky build, who appeared to be in his 20s, exclaimed in shock. I wonder if these things are real or fake. This isn't the real world. Isn't this the immortal treasure pavilion of the Southern Heaven Spirit Capital, the #1 city in the Nanquan Empire? Oh my God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Or am I dreaming? There are treasures all over the street. I wonder if these things are just decorations or can they really be used? Someone finally asked. Whether it's useful or not, we'll know once we try it. A burly bald man with bulging muscles revealed greed in his eyes. Most of the young cultivators were in awe. After all, this was the Jiuxuan divine realm created by the Jiuxuan spirit sage. However, there were still some who didn't believe in heresy. That burly bald man grabbed a mystic understanding grade broadsword from the shelf and injected spirit chi into it. The broadsword immediately flashed with spirit chi, releasing a dazzling brilliance and a buzzing sound. The burly man lightly shouted, "Rise." The broadsword in his hand flew out and smashed into the wall on the other side of the street with a boom. It directly pierced a hole with a diameter of over 10 meters. Its power was astonishing. It's real! Someone exclaimed in shock. At the side of the Myriad Pill building, someone saw this scene and picked up a small bottle with spirit pills on the shelf. 1-star spirit increasing pill. That person whispered and poured out the pill from the bottle and swallowed it. Oh! After swallowing it, that person groaned. The young cultivators in the Myriad Pill building were shocked, thinking that this person had been poisoned. It looked like that was indeed the case. The young cultivator who swallowed the 1-star spirit increasing pill was thin and his cultivation was only at the late stage of the soul formation realm. His strength was not weak, but in this place, he was not that powerful. He fell to the ground in pain. His whole body was hot and red, as if he had been burned by fire. His expression was twisted. Under everyone's gaze, that thin young cultivator kept rolling on the ground. However, after 2 or 3 minutes, the pain on his face gradually disappeared. Then, a turbid air came out of his body. The thin young cultivator slowly got up from the ground and looked at his hands in disbelief. Ha ha ha, it's useful, it's really useful. I broke through. Bang! The spirit chi on the thin young cultivator's body suddenly exploded, and his cultivation reached the peak of the soul formation realm in one fell swoop. In just a few minutes, he had forcibly raised a small realm. In an instant, the whole street was in an uproar. All the young cultivators realized that everything in front of them was not just for show. The thin young cultivator tasted the sweetness and immediately became crazy. He used his movement technique and quickly swept up all the spirit medicines on the shelf. 1-star spirit medicine to him. He might not be able to buy even one outside even if he sold his family's fortune. He could take whatever he wanted here. The Eternal Spirit Venerable's hint did not say that he could not use the items here. Then what was there to hesitate for? The first person to eat the crab confirmed that it was not poisonous. The others no longer hesitated and swarmed over to fight for it. It's mine, it's mine. Bullshit, I saw it first. Let go, or not. If you don't let go, I won't be polite. Motherfucker, you saw it first, so it's yours. I got it first, so it's mine. Similar curses rose and fell one after another. Boom. Dang, 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 dang. More than 10 minutes ago, it was still a peaceful street, but in an instant it became a chaotic battlefield. Most of the participating cultivators, in order to seize the opportunity, in order to become stronger in 2 days, in order to obtain these ownerless treasures, they began to fight, and the scene instantly went out of control. However, not all the young cultivators participated in this fight. A small number of young cultivators were not interested in these ownerless treasures. It was not that they did not know the value of these treasures, but these treasures and spirit pills were not worthy of their attention. They were only Tongxian grade treasures, there was nothing to fight over. Li Daochong was one of these people. At this moment, he was standing by the side of the street, leaning against a water spirit fir, leisurely watching the show. He was holding a bag of ice spirit fruits in his hand and eating them with relish. Li Daochong also took an ownerless treasure, but it was not a treasure or spirit pill. Instead, he entered a food store and chose a bag of ice spirit fruit. Before the competition officially began, Li Daochong did not plan to do anything. As for those treasures and spirit pills, they were useless to Li Daochong. No matter how good they were, he did not need them. Song Inc. had already leveled up to the purple mystic immortal realm. Xueni's cultivation had improved tremendously. Li Daochong could not imagine how powerful the purple mystic saber had become after fusing with the chaos fragment. Even Tribulation Transcendence cultivators might not have immortal level treasures. As for spirit pills, Li Daochong had plenty of them. More than half of them could not be found on the market. They were all refined from spirit herbs on the Blackwood Star. Li Daochong did not need to fight for spirit talismans. He had 7 level 19 enhanced spirit talismans and 1 level 25 enhanced fire talisman that could destroy heaven and earth. In the 6th capital of the Jiuxuan God realm, there were no spirit talismans above level 13. Li Daochong had more than 10 spirit computers with him. They were all prepared by Yinjie. They were the latest spirit computers with a computing capacity of 50 million. Strangely, all the items that Li Daochong had on him were all reflected in this spiritual world. Xuenai was the only one who separated from the purple mystic saber when she entered. She did not appear near the 6th capital. Li Daochong had already contacted Xuenai immediately. He did not know why she appeared near the 9th capital. In order to test Xueni's actual combat strength, Li Daochong allowed her to participate in the competition as an independent. She passed the preliminary round smoothly. Therefore, Xuenai was also a participant. She was not Li Daochong's weapon spirit. The competition was not limited to humans. Any other race, except for the ghost race, could participate. Besides the purple mystic saber, Li Daochong now had another immortal-level magic treasure, the Chaos Knife. Li Daochong had not tested this magic treasure in actual combat, but from the few tests, he could tell that it was extremely powerful. Li Daochong also injected the Heavenly Thunder Primordial Spirit into the Chaos Knife, giving it a weapon spirit and increasing its power to another level. Li Daochong had plenty of equipment himself. The treasures displayed here were just a pile of scrap metal to him. Li Daochong leisurely ate the ice soul fruit and watched the show unfold. The battle escalated. Boom! A black-robed young cultivator was shot down from the sky and smashed onto a flower terrace by the street not far away from Li Daochong. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was severely injured. Before the black-robed young cultivator could do anything, a flying sword shot over from the void and pierced him. Li Daochong looked at the black-robed young man who was killed curiously, wanting to know what would happen next. The black-robed young man looked at his pierced chest in disbelief. Thereafter, his body turned transparent and disappeared before long. Before the black-robed young man disappeared, he looked at Li Daochong with a lost gaze. He wanted to say something but could not. With a flick of his hand, a silver light shot out and he disappeared. Clang! The silver light landed beside Li Daochong's feet. It was a short sword. The sword was only a foot long and was green in color. There were spirit patterns engraved on it and it emitted an ancient aura. It was a supreme-grade mystic Dharma treasure. It was a good sword. Even void refinement realm cultivators could use it. However, to Li Daochong, it was not attractive at all. Other than the fact that Li Daochong took a few more glances at the spirit patterns engraved on it, he was not interested in anything else. However, it was those glances that brought trouble to Li Daochong. "Little bastard, what are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig your dog eyes out. Do you want them? If you want them, you have to measure your own capabilities first. The black-robed guy that I killed earlier was at the peak of the soul formation realm. If you want to follow in his footsteps, you can try." A young woman in a green dress flew down from the void and looked at Li Daochong warily with her beautiful eyes. The short sword was lying quietly less than 10 inches away from Li Daochong's feet. "Lad, hurry up and kick that green dragon short sword over. Can't you see that my big sister wants it?" A muscular young man in a khaki-colored martial attire also landed from the sky and stared at Li Daochong as he shouted. Li Daochong ate the ice spirit fruit and glanced at the two of them from the corner of his eyes. There was no emotion in his eyes, as if he was looking at two stones on the street. He did not move or respond. The two of them thought that Li Daochong would definitely snatch the treasure. Little did they know that Li Daochong did not even bother to look at it. Chapter 780. The battle between Li Daochong and Pan Jialuo in the revival match went viral on the spiritual nexus, and videos and information were everywhere. However, Li Daochong always had a habit of covering himself with his telepathic thoughts as long as he was on the spiritual nexus. Therefore, ordinary people couldn't see his simulated image at all, and ordinary cultivators couldn't see his appearance very clearly either. Only truly powerful cultivators or cultivators with powerful telepathic thoughts could see Li Daochong's appearance clearly. Therefore, most people couldn't recognize Li Daochong when they saw him. Li Daochong was too lazy to pay attention to these small cultivators who were fighting over such a magical treasure. Those who were truly powerful and had a solid foundation didn't care about these things at all. At present, Li Daochong still didn't understand the rules of the finals. The organizers of this competition were sponsored by dozens of super cultivation companies. But in fact, these cultivation companies were only paying for it in name. The real organizers were the spiritual venerables at the top of the human domain's spiritual realm. Judging from the current situation, the rules of the finals obviously wouldn't be that the cultivators would fight one by one. With so many people, it would take a very long time for them to use this method. Before the rules of the finals were out, Li Daochong didn't want to make a move easily. However, if someone was blind enough to provoke him, then don't blame him for being ruthless. The female cultivator surnamed Wang, who was wearing a green dress, didn't distinguish between right and wrong and started cursing. "Little bastard." Li Daochong's eyes flashed with killing intent. On the surface, he looked bored, but in fact, he already had the intention to kill. "Little bastard, are you deaf? Didn't you hear me when I told you to throw the dagger over?" A strong young man wearing a yellow martial suit said impatiently. Li Daochong picked his ears and threw the ice spirit fruit he was about to put into his mouth at the strong young man with a shake of his wrist. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air. Everything in Jiuxuan's spiritual realm was no different from the real world. It was just that he didn't know if after being killed, it would be the same as on the spiritual nexus. Would it just be a simulated image dissipating, or would it be a real death? Although he wasn't sure, the rules didn't say that he couldn't fight during these 2 days, nor did they say that he couldn't kill. Since he didn't say anything, Li Daochong didn't have to worry about anything. Right now, the entire number 6 imperial capital was in chaos. Every minute, every second, there were contestants being killed in the process of snatching magic treasures and spirit pills. The sturdy young man didn't expect Li Daochong to suddenly throw something at him. His instinctive reaction was to dodge. However, before the sturdy young man could do anything, the seemingly slow white object had already arrived. Left with no choice, the sturdy young man raised his hand to block. Boom! The moment he came into contact with the white object, the muscular young man's eyes widened in shock, and an incomparably terrifying force ran through his body. The sturdy young man was instantly blasted into smithereens and disappeared. The female cultivator surnamed Wang's face was pale. She didn't even see clearly how the young man leaning against the wudong made his move. What did he throw out? Who are you? Do you dare to state your name? The female cultivator surnamed Wang no longer had her previous arrogance. She immediately realized that she had encountered a tough opponent. In the battle just now, she had killed several opponents, and for a moment, she was a little complacent. The young man in front of her had casually killed her lackey, and it was like a basin of cold water had been poured over her from head to toe. She immediately sobered up. This was the youth competition of the entire human realm's spirit realm. All the geniuses of the 3 great cultivation empires had come to participate. Not to mention that there were many experts, some of their strength had far exceeded the knowledge of ordinary cultivators. The female cultivator surnamed Wang immediately cowered. She wanted to run away, but she couldn't bring herself to do so. The sturdy young man was only slightly weaker than her. Scram! Li Daochong lightly spat out a word. When Li Daochong killed the sturdy young man, he also wanted to get rid of this arrogant and domineering female cultivator. However, when he was about to make a second move, he found that several powerful divine wills shot over and enveloped him. In the blink of an eye, they probed his entire body several times. These divine wills were so strong that even Li Daochong almost couldn't deal with them. These guys hiding in the dark almost found out about him. It was not worth it to expose himself for a little brat. Li Daochong was too lazy to make another move. At this moment, his attention was focused on those guys who were probing him openly. He separated his divine wills and shot them out. Since you're probing me, then I'll do the same to you. Li Daochong didn't care about the female cultivator surnamed Wang at all, but the latter was as embarrassed as she could be. Her pretty face was pale with anger. The dignified young lady of the Black Tortoise Star's Wang family of the Nanquan Empire was actually being scolded by an unknown brat. Some of the surrounding cultivators noticed this, especially when the sturdy young man was killed by Li Daochong with a wave of his hand. This really shocked them. They firmly remembered Li Daochong's appearance and warned themselves not to provoke this guy. The number of participants in the competition was as many as the hairs on a cow. There were hundreds of billions of them. It was normal for there to be crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Based on the female cultivator surnamed Wang's temper, if someone dared to treat her like this, she would have slapped that person. But now, she didn't dare to do so. She could faintly feel that this young man leaning against the parasol tree was stronger than her. Resentment filled her heart, but she didn't dare to act out. She forcefully swallowed her resentment and flew away. She didn't leave, only a little further away. With a thought, she sent out a summoning order to all the participants under the Wang family. Stinky brat, You dare to act all high and mighty in front of this young lady. Fine, you'll get it. The female cultivator surnamed Wang's face was gloomy. Hiding at the edge of the street 100 meters away, the female cultivator surnamed Wang stared at Li Daochong, afraid that he would slip away. More importantly, she couldn't let anyone take away the Azure Dragon short sword. This sword, the female cultivator surnamed Wang was determined to get it. The Wang family's status on the Black Tortoise Star was high, one of the 4 major families, but ranked at the bottom. In front of the Wang family were the Yi family, the Zhang family, and the Yan family. The female cultivator surnamed Wang's full name was Wang Kaidai. Her name was very ladylike, but she was a different story. On the Black Tortoise Star, she was a famous, unruly princess. Wang Kaidi's talent wasn't low. In the South Earth Empire, she could be considered a decent young cultivator. Her bone age was 29, her cultivation was at the peak of the soul formation realm, and her battle prowess was at least at the mid-spatial refinement realm. She had countless magic treasures and resources. With her background, a top-grade profound understanding magic treasure wasn't much of a treasure. At most, it was okay. However, this short sword was called the Azure Dragon Short Sword. It was said that it was carved with spirit patterns by the Dragon Clan of the ancient Demon Clan. Wang Kaidai cultivated the Azure Dragon sword art and couldn't display its full power. Her master told her that if she could obtain a magic treasure carved with spirit patterns from the Dragon Clan, the power of her sword would increase by 2 times. Therefore, when she saw this Azure Dragon short sword, Wang Kaidai wanted it for herself no matter what. It would increase her chances of winning the finals. Wang Kaidai gritted her teeth as she stared at Li Daochong and the Azure Dragon short sword at his feet. Suddenly, the figure in front of her blurred and disappeared. Damn it! Wang Kaidai cried out in her heart. However, the shock on her face was soon replaced by doubt. That young man had disappeared, and the Azure Dragon short sword was still lying there. Young miss, I'm here. Just as Wang Kaidai was puzzled, a cynical voice sounded from behind her. A man wearing a yellow Taoist robe, identical to the Taoist robes that were popular in the ancient times, landed from the sky. At the same time, a powerful spiritual pressure enveloped the entire street. This Taoist-robed man was an early spatial refinement cultivator. Chapter 781. When Wang Kaidai saw that a cultivator had found the Azure Dragon sword lying on the ground, she immediately said, "Quick, help me grab that sword." The male Taoist priest's frivolous face suddenly sank. His eyes flashed and he shot out like a shooting star. The 2 young cultivators who had just picked up the Azure Dragon sword and were full of joy didn't even have time to look at the sword's attributes before their chests were pierced by a flash of light. The 2 young cultivators were dumbfounded and their figures disappeared without a trace. The male Taoist priest grabbed the Azure Dragon sword that hadn't fallen yet and returned to Wang Kaidai. The male Taoist priest respectfully said, "Young miss, here you go." Wang Kaidai took the Azure Dragon sword and poured her divine sense into it. A dragon's roar sounded in her sea of consciousness. This is it. Wang Kaidai was overjoyed. "Young miss, you said in your voice transmission that someone bullied you? Where is he?" The male Taoist priest looked around with a face full of righteous indignation. Who dared to bully the young miss? They must be tired of living. Wang Kaidi's joy disappeared and she said angrily, "He ran away." "Ran away? Damn!" the male Taoist priest shouted. Then, he said with conviction, "Young miss, don't be impatient. Did you record his aura's strength or characteristics? Or did you record his spiritual image? Let me take a look and I'll go catch him. You can do whatever you want with him. I won't rest until young miss is appeased." Wang Kaidai thought about it and remembered that she had recorded the young man's spiritual image. She immediately raised her wristwatch and pressed a button. However, what was displayed was a blurry figure. The male Taoist priest looked at it for a long time. "Young miss, that's it? The veins on Wang Katie's forehead bulged. That's it. The male Taoist priest was about to go crazy. He forced himself not to show it. Who told him to rely on the Wang family? Wang Kai-dai was famous for being arrogant and domineering. Not only was she reckless, but she was also often muddle-headed. The male Taoist priest had learned his lesson today. If you want me to kill someone, you should at least have a target. If I don't record anything, I can't avenge you even if I want to. As the two of them spoke, the participating cultivators of the Wang clan who had received Wang Kai-dai all rushed over. Including the Taoist priest, there were a total of 7 people. There were also a few people who weren't in the number 6 imperial capital and couldn't make it in time. Apart from the male Taoist priest, there was also a round-faced cultivator who was at the void refinement stage. As for the other 5, even the weakest one was at the late deity transformation stage. The 6 of them were from the Wang clan, but the round-faced cultivator was not from the Wang clan. He was Wang Katie's pursuer, Zhang Haotian. He was a descendant of the Black Tortoise planet's Zhang family, and could be considered Zhang Dongjin's younger cousin. He was the young master of the Zhang family who was almost killed by Li Daochong on the Blue Bay Star. Wang Kai-dai was monitoring Li Daochong. How could she escape the detection of Li Daochong's divine sense? He just didn't want to deal with her. Not long after Li Daochong's divine sense spread out, he inadvertently sensed Li He's aura. The latter's aura was chaotic, as if he had been attacked. At this moment, he was moving at a high speed. Li Daochong wanted them to face the danger alone, but he wouldn't leave them in the lurch. At present, he didn't know what the consequences of dying here were. Li Daochong couldn't just sit by and watch Li He be in danger. Hence, he used the 1,000-sound escape technique and chased after him. Apart from Li He, Li Daochong didn't sense the auras of Yin Ping, Xiao Ying, and Li Ling. The 3 of them didn't seem to be near the number 6 imperial capital. The number 6 imperial capital was 2 to 3 times larger than the largest city on the Kunlun planet, Kunlun City. It was a veritable megacity that covered an area of thousands of square kilometers. However, even so, Li Daochong only needed a few seconds to use the 1,000-sound escape technique to reach any location in the city. Li He, don't worry about me. Escape by yourself. It's inconvenient to bring me along. I'll only be a burden to you. If they catch up, the 2-star soul transformation pill that we worked so hard to get will be gone. In an alley that was separated by 2 tall buildings, a young woman who was covered in blood and wearing dark red tights stopped and said with a tired face. She couldn't run anymore. The woman and Li He were both injured to varying degrees, and their injuries were very serious. They had been running at their maximum speed for more than 10 minutes without stopping. Because of their injuries, running was very tiring. However, the city's terrain was complicated. Running around randomly made it easier to avoid pursuit than flying in the air. On the street not far behind them, 5 young cultivators in orange uniform chased after them at high speed. I won't leave you behind. There's a total of 2 2-star entering spirit pills, and we work together to get them. If we're leaving, we'll leave together. If we don't leave, neither of us will leave. If you want me to escape alone, Li He, can't do it, Li He said firmly. After Li He entered the Jiuxuan Divine Light, he appeared near the only skyscraper in the center of the number 6 imperial capital. Like all the contestants who came in, Li He quickly realized that everything here was like reality. Dharma treasures and spiritual herbs could be used. Although Li He had obtained a lot of good things with Li Daochong's help, he wasn't Li Daochong after all. Whether it was cultivation, combat power, or Dharma treasures, there was still a lot of room for improvement. Seeing good things, it was impossible for Li He not to be moved. However, he knew that his strength was limited and wouldn't fight with others. Instead, he found another way and entered an area with fewer people to try his luck and see if he could find something good. Needless to say, Li He really found two 2-star soul transformation pills in an inconspicuous medicine store cabinet. However, as more and more young cultivators entered the Jiuquan divine realm, the uninhabited area became fewer and fewer. Li He wasn't the only one who wanted to come in and try his luck in such an inconspicuous medicine store. Many young cultivators with weaker strength had chosen such a quiet way to make a fortune. Li He and the woman in tight clothes who was escaping with him at this moment unexpectedly met in an inconspicuous medicine store. This woman's name was Yu Yunshan. Her cultivation was about the same as Li He's. The two of them discovered the soul transformation pills at the same time. However, the two of them were friendly and didn't fight. It just so happened that there were two 2-star soul transformation pills. One pill per person. It was useless to eat more. Since that was the case, there was naturally no need to fight to the death. The two of them decided to split the loot and split up. Who knew that a group of people would suddenly rush in from outside? They were all wearing the same martial uniform. With one look, one could tell that they were participants from the same cultivation company or family. The competition didn't stipulate that you couldn't form teams to participate. Therefore, there were many cultivators participating in such teams. These guys had the advantage in numbers. Naturally, they wouldn't reason with you. The city was already in a mess. Whoever had the bigger fist would get more benefits. As soon as they came in and saw the soul transformation pill in Li He's hand, they didn't say a word and came up to snatch it. The soul transformation pill was expensive in the outside world. Without tens of millions of high-grade spirit stones, it was absolutely impossible to buy it. The soul transformation pills sold were usually starless spirit pills. They couldn't be compared to 2-star soul transformation pills at all. The soul transformation pill was a divine pill that increased the probability of breaking through to the soul formation stage. Ordinary soul transformation pills could increase the probability by 15 to 20%. 2-star soul transformation pills could increase the probability by 50%. This could almost allow a peak Yuanian cultivator to have a high probability of breaking through. There were spirit herbs everywhere in the 6th imperial capital. As long as they could find a star-grade spirit enhancement pill and consume the soul transformation pill, Li He and Yu Yunshan could successfully step into the soul formation stage. Of course, it was the same for other late-stage Yuanian cultivators. Both sides immediately fought. It was strange. Li He and Yu Yunshan met for the first time, but they had quite a tacit understanding when fighting together. They actually caught the other party off guard and gained the upper hand. However, the two of them were weak after all. They didn't have the heart to fight for a long time. After gaining the upper hand, they immediately ran out of the medicine shop. Who knew that there were still people outside? The number of people in this group was not ordinary. There were more than 10 of them. The two of them desperately protected the soul transformation pill and killed 7 of the other party. However, they were also injured. They couldn't fight anymore, so they used the complicated terrain in the city to try to escape. However, due to their injuries, they couldn't run fast at all. They could only rely on the buildings to cover them. Here. Just as the two of them were talking, a shout came from above. Dong! A burly man in an orange martial robe landed heavily in front of the two of them. The other 4 young cultivators in orange martial robes quickly heard the sound and surrounded Li He and Yu Yunshan. Li He was already prepared to fight to the death. He protected Yu Yunshan, who was even more seriously injured, behind him. At this moment, Yu Yunshan, who was being protected behind Li He, silently looked at the back of the young cultivator. A trace of indescribable palpitation appeared in her beautiful eyes. In such an environment, with a spirit pill and being surrounded, you and I just met by chance and only had a verbal agreement. He could have run away alone, but he resolutely stayed. In this day and age, such a young man was rare. Yu Yunshan was touched and had a good impression of Li He. Li He waited for a long time, but the other party didn't attack immediately. They only surrounded the two of them and didn't let them escape. They seemed to be waiting for something. Not long after, a light flashed in the sky. A young cultivator in orange robes descended from the sky. His aura was clearly that of a late-stage soul formation cultivator. Li He's heart turned cold. When the 5 cultivators in orange martial robes saw this young man, they immediately bowed and called out at the same time, "Young Master Yuan." They were all participating cultivators under planet Wu Sha's rapid transport. Young Master Yuan was called Yuan Shaogang. He was the young master of a certain director of the rapid transport. A late-stage soul formation cultivator with a mid-stage void refinement battle prowess wasn't weak. The young cultivator in orange robes looked at Li He with a smile that wasn't a smile. "TSK, kid, you're quite loyal." Li He looked at the other party with a determined expression and didn't speak. "Ha ha ha, the ancients say that heroes have a weakness for beauties. Kid, I won't make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over the soul formation pill, I can let you go. It may not be very beautiful for you, but it can be considered as saving a beauty." Li He gritted his teeth. He was unwilling, but there was no other way. If he didn't hand it over, the other party could still kill him and take it. Yu Yunshan was also unwilling, but she also knew that it was useless not to give it. A late-stage soul formation cultivator wasn't someone the two of them could deal with. "What? Is there a need to consider?" "Give it to him," Yu Yunshan whispered behind Li He. Li He sighed in his heart. He took out 2 soul formation pills and threw them to Yuan Shaogang. When the pills entered his hand, Yuan Shaogang glanced at them and then kept them in his storage ring. At this moment, Li He supported Yu Yunshan and was about to leave. "Stop, who said you could leave?" Yuan Shaogang's malicious voice immediately sounded. "What do you mean?" Li He's eyes were spitting fire. "What do you mean?" "I mean you can die. You killed 7 of us, do you really think we'll let you go?" A burly man said coldly. "F***ck, you're going back on your words, son of a bitch." Li He immediately understood that he had been tricked. Yu Yunshan bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. Her face was pale. Other than being shocked that the other party could go back on his words so openly, she didn't want to die more. In fact, dying in the Jiuxuan God realm didn't mean death. It was similar to the spiritual net, but it was also different. Dying on the spiritual net didn't mean any loss. However, there was a punishment for dying here. Yu Yunshan was one of the few participating cultivators who knew some of the rules of the finals. Chapter 782. The wonderful thing about the Jiuxuan God realm was that it was almost the same as reality. Those who entered would inherit everything from the original body. Cultivation, combat power, cultivation techniques, and all the items they carried. But if one died here, half of all the items they carried would be randomly dropped. This was the punishment for dying once in the Jiuxuan God realm. It didn't seem like there were any losses, but for cultivators with good things, it was almost fatal. Take Li Daochong for example. If he died once, half of the items on him would be dropped. The purple profound saber and the primal chaos knife would also drop at the same time. At the same time, the cultivators who died would immediately disappear on the spot and revive at the resurrection point. The resurrection point wasn't in the city, but in a very distant area. If he wanted to return to the place where he died, even with Li Daochong's speed, he would need to fly for 1 or 2 hours, not to mention the other cultivators. They wouldn't be able to return without at least a day and a half. Want to pick up the items you dropped? Don't even think about it. Yu Yunshan knew this, so she didn't want to die. Because she had some good things that her brother gave her. Before the competition began, Yu Yunshan didn't want to expose herself. But now, it seemed that she couldn't not use it. Yu Yunshan was also a descendant of a big family, so she had seen many people since she was young. But this was the first time she had seen such a despicable and shameless person. Li He's lungs were about to explode. He glared at Yuan Shaogang, wishing he could swallow this guy. I gave you the entering spirit pill, how can you go back on your words? To a low-level cultivator like you, it's not going back on my words. Have you ever seen a person talk about honesty with an ant? Yuan Shaogang narrowed his eyes and looked at Li He with disdain. From the beginning, Yuan Shaogang didn't plan to let Li He go. But he had a hobby, which was to completely destroy the other party physically and mentally, making the other party despair. Seeing the helpless and angry expression, Yuan Shaogang felt an inexplicable sense of excitement. Shameless. Yu Yunshan glared at Yuan Shaogang. Shameless? I was kind enough to put on a show to save the damsel in distress. Even if I didn't contribute anything, I still worked hard. And yet, I was scolded for being shameless. I can't be a good person. Since you're treating my good intentions as ill intent and forcing me to be shameless, then so be it. Yuan Shaogang's eyes flashed viciously and his hand moved. Li He and Yu Yunshan were separated by an invisible force. Yuan Shaogang tapped a few times in the air, and Yu Yunshan seemed to have been immobilized, unable to move. Li He was the same. Several big men stepped forward and restrained Li He. What are you trying to do? Yu Yunshan berated. Of course I'm here to look at your graceful figure. Ha! If you put it on the spiritual nexus, it will definitely be very interesting. Yuan Shaogang laughed out loud. The expression of despair on Yu Yunshan's beautiful face made him extremely fascinated. Yuan Shaogang took a deep breath and slowly raised his hand towards Yu Yunshan's collar. Stop! You dare? If you have the ability, then come at me! Li He roared. Yuan Shaogang glanced at Li He in boredom. Coming for you? What's there to look at? Beautiful ladies are still the best. Ha! Li He's eyes turned red. He tried his best to move, but his body was stiff and numb. He was unable to move. Bang! When a burly man saw Li He's unyielding expression, he went up and punched him heavily in the stomach. Brat, I'm letting you look at it for nothing. You're still not happy. You're asking for a beating. The burly man said in a rough voice. Rip. As he spoke, Yu Yunshan's outer clothes were torn apart by Yuan Shaogang, revealing half of her fair and smooth shoulder. Li He turned his face away and closed his eyes. The burly man grabbed his chin and turned his face. Another burly man forcefully pried open Li He's eyelids. Yu Yunshan looked at Yuan Shaogang in disbelief and despair. There was actually such a perverted and shameless fellow in this world. No. When Yuan Shaogang tore off the other side of her outer clothes, Yu Yunshan let out a hysterical cry. How could Yuan Shaogang listen? An expression of incomparable satisfaction and enjoyment appeared on his round face. This feeling of controlling the life and death of others and having everything in his hands at his disposal was so fascinating. Helpless tears fell from Yu Yunshan's eyes. Li He tried his best not to look as several fists landed on his body like raindrops. Yuan Shaogang enjoyed the feeling of torturing others to his heart's content and calmly raised his hand again. Yu Yunshan wanted to self-destruct, but even her primordial spirit was sealed. Hey! Suddenly, a shout came from behind them. It was very sudden and timely. Yuan Shaogang was stunned. His raised hand paused in midair. A few burly men in uniform turned their heads to look at the same time. They saw a handsome young man dressed in a dark ancient long robe looking at them with a faint smile on his face. As for when he appeared and how long he had been there, Yuan Shaogang and the burly men didn't notice him at all. It was as if he was invisible before that shout. Dao Chong. Li He, who was struggling in anger and despair, suddenly trembled. Li Daochong nodded slightly. His spiritual sense had been locked onto Li He the entire time, so he already knew everything that had happened. Yuan Shaogang sized up Li Daochong from head to toe and scanned with his spiritual sense. When he sensed that the other party was only at the late stage of Yuanying's cultivation, the doubt in his eyes instantly disappeared, and a devilish smile appeared on his face. Little bastard, do you want to join? Li Daochong dug his ears, as if he didn't hear clearly. Little bastard, who are you scolding? Yuan Shaogang looked at him, as if he was an idiot. Little bastard is scolding you, Li Daochong said with a look of surprise. Oh, little bastard is scolding me? This is the first time I've heard someone call me a little bastard. Everyone was stunned. Only then did Yuan Shaogang react. His face instantly turned green with anger as he roared. What a sharp-tongued little bastard. F***ck go, capture him. This young master wants to see what's in his mouth. Pull out all his teeth for this young master. Two burly men who had nothing to do immediately pounced forward. Bang! Bang! Li Daochong raised his leg twice, and the two burly men who pounced forward were sent flying before they could even get close. They slammed heavily into the wall and fainted. Li Daochong's figure flashed. The remaining three burly men saw a blur in front of their eyes. Before they knew what was going on, they heard a few cracking sounds. Following three screams, the three burly men's legs were deformed as they fell to the ground. At the same time, Li He and Yu Yunshan's immobile bodies had already regained their freedom. Yuan Shaogang realized that something was wrong and immediately attacked. However, his body was rooted to the ground, unable to move. Slap! Li Daochong went forward and slapped Yuan Shaogang's face. Open your mouth. Didn't you want to see what's in that little bastard's mouth? Yuan Shaogang stared at Li Daochong in disbelief. The other party was clearly only at the late stage of Yuanying's cultivation level. How could he instantly kill 5 of his subordinates and even suppress him? Yuan Shaogang was completely stunned. One had to know that he was a late-stage soul formation cultivator, and his combat strength was close to that of an early-stage void refinement cultivator. How could he not be able to defeat a late-stage Yuanying cultivator? How was that possible? Slap! Another slap landed on Yuan Shaogang's face. This slap was many times heavier than the previous one. Pooh! Yuan Shaogang spat out a mouthful of blood, accompanied by several teeth. Bang! Li Daochong punched Yuan Shaogang in the mouth. What? Yuan Shaogang opened his mouth and vomited blood and teeth. Yuan Shaogang never dreamed that the Jiuxuan divine realm would be so realistic. The pain he felt was no different from reality, and his teeth were as if they were real. Do you know who I am? Yuan Shaogang glared at Li Daochong with hatred. I know, little bastard. Li Daochong looked at Yuan Shaogang as if he was looking at an idiot. His gaze seemed to be saying, is there a need to ask when you already know the answer? After being rescued from despair, Yu Yunshan, who had been standing at the side for a while, couldn't help but laugh out loud. Li He, he's your companion? Yu Yunshan asked curiously. He's my boss. Li He didn't know how to explain, so he replied simply. Your boss is so interesting. After being tormented by Li Daochong, the haze in Yu Yunshan's heart had already dissipated. Chapter 783. Yuan Shaogang's eyes were spitting fire, but there was nothing he could do. His body couldn't move at all. He had tried everything he could, but he still couldn't break the curse. He didn't know why he couldn't move, and he couldn't sense what kind of ability was used on him. Not only was his body unable to move, but his soul was also locked down, and he couldn't even release spiritual qi. If Yuan Shaogang still couldn't see the terrifying strength of this teen who suddenly appeared, then he would really be an animal. Little bastard, I am from Wuxia Planet's Yuan family. If you let me go, I can treat it as if this didn't happen. Yuan Shaogang knew better than to fight when the odds were against him, so he softened his tone and tried to buy time. However, he gritted his teeth. It was impossible for him to treat it as if it didn't happen. If he didn't skin this person alive, he wouldn't be able to get rid of the hatred in his heart. Wuxia Planet's Yuan family? Li Daochong asked. Yuan Shaogang's lips curled up and his eyes were filled with pride. He laughed coldly in his heart. That's right. If you don't want to be enemies with the Yuan family, Then let me go. I can let bygones be bygones. Yuan? You really are an animal. Li Daochong discovered a new continent. Yuan Shaogang realized that he was wrong. He stared at Li Daochong speechlessly. Little bastard, I have never heard of Yuan families, Li. If you want to scram, simple. Leave all your items and scram with your bunch of dogs, Li Daochong said calmly. Yuan Shaogang was so furious that he nearly fainted. Only he would treat others like that. When had he ever been treated like that? Just kill me, Yuan Shaogang said stubbornly. He had nothing to lose. Kill you? That's so boring. Li Daochong's lips curled up. Pung! Before Yuan Shaogang could speak, a heavy fist landed on his stomach. Ping! A bolt of lightning entered his body. What? Yuan Shaogang felt the world spinning, and he nearly fainted. Pa Pung! Another slap and a kick. Stop, I'll give. Yuan Shaogang's face was twisted. The pain that came from the depths of his soul made it impossible for him to hold on for too long. Although everything in the Jiuxuan realm of the gods was similar to the real world, it was still a spiritual world after all. The pain here was much stronger than in the real world. Being punched was even more unbearable than being burned. It was as if one's soul was being tortured. Li Daochong's fist contained a trace of the power of heavenly thunder, and the pain increased by several times. It was extremely satisfying. Yuan Shaogang didn't expect that it would hurt to this extent. He immediately became more obedient. He didn't dare to hesitate and immediately took out the items in his storage ring. First of all, there were the 2 entering spirit pills, which he knew he could not hide. Li Daochong threw the 2 entering spirit pills to Li He. Take them. Thank you, boss. Li He's face lit up with joy. We're brothers, why the hell are you thanking me? Li Daochong said grumpily. Li He had a silly smile on his face. Although he was scolded by Li Daochong, his heart felt warm. Li He then gave one of the entering spirit pills to Yu Yunshan. The little girl held it in her hand as if she had received a treasure. She glanced at Li He and then at Li Daochong. Boss, I'm not your brother, thanks. Li Daochong waved his hand indifferently. 6 words were written on his face. No need to thank me for a small matter. Yuan Shaogang took out a lot of items. There were more than 10 bottles of spirit medicine alone. Each bottle contained dozens of spirit pills with different uses and effect. There were 3 magic treasures, 1 cultivation technique, more than 10 spirit talismans, and a defensive spirit array that could be activated instantly. Their ranks ranged from mid-grade heaven rank to high-grade mystic rank. The quality was not bad. After Li Daochong browsed through them, these things naturally didn't catch his eye. They didn't even have much value as a collection. Li Daochong glanced at Li He. With a thought, these items flew to Li He as if they were carried by a pair of invisible hands. They're all yours. Those spirit medicines should be of great help to you. Take the other items and see if you can trade them. Yes, boss. Li He's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. These items were all treasures to him. Most of them were used by soul formation cultivators. Yuanian cultivators couldn't afford them at all. After being scolded by Li Daochong, he didn't dare to thank him again. He accepted the order seriously. Everything is here. Can you let me go now? Yuan Shaogang couldn't wait any longer. Everything is here? No way. Don't you have 2 magic treasures, 3 bottles of spirit medicine, 2 spirit talismans, and a cultivation technique in your storage ring? Li Daochong said unhurriedly. Yuan Shaogang looked at Li Daochong as if he was looking at a monster. This guy actually reported all the items in his storage ring without missing a single detail. Yuan Shaogang felt a chill down his spine. The storage ring was locked with a spirit pattern code. Every cultivator was different. If one wanted to look inside, they could only use the holder or destroy the storage ring. Of course, there was another way, which was to crack the spirit pattern code. This method required the strength and precision of one's spirit sense to be extremely high. The higher the cultivation of the holder, the more dense and complex the spirit pattern code would be. Yuan Shaogang was in the late stage of soul formation. If one wanted to crack the spirit pattern in his storage ring, one would have to have a spirit sense above the late stage of void refinement. Yuan Shaogang sucked in a cold breath. This guy was a void refinement cultivator? If that was the case, this person had reached another level. Even in the Kuan Empire, being able to break through to the void refinement realm at a young age was enough to look down on the entire spiritual realm. There must be a place for him on the list of prodigies. Seeing Li Daocheng's fierce gaze, it seemed like he was going to start another fight. Yuan Shaogang suddenly quivered, as if he had just finished peeing in the winter. He would rather be killed than endure the torture that came from the depths of his soul. It was too king painful. Whoosh! With a flash of light, the remaining items in the storage ring were all taken out. These items were obviously better than the ones just now. However, Li Daocheng didn't even look at them and threw them all to Li He. Can you let me go now? Yuan Shaogang's eyes flashed with viciousness. He must get back at him for this. Just wait and see. With a thought from Li Daocheng, the shackles on Yuan Shaogang's body were instantly released. The 5 burly men barely recovered and stood at the side, waiting for amnesty. As soon as the shackles were released, Yuan Shaogang felt an indescribable comfort. He didn't dare to stay any longer. Without a word, he turned around and flew away, ignoring the 5 followers. The 5 followers were seriously injured. Li Daocheng didn't hit them too hard. Each of them only received 1 blow. However, this casual blow almost sent the 5 Yuanying flying, not to mention the physical body. They couldn't even run, let alone fly. They couldn't even circulate their spirit qi. However, the 5 of them were scared out of their wits. They endured the pain and limped, supporting each other. Their faces were red and they used all their strength to escape from this dangerous place. The strength of the young man was too terrifying. However, Yuan Shaogang used all his strength to fly up, but he was only a few meters above the ground. Stop! A cold voice sounded. Yuan Shaogang didn't care. The spirit qi in his body was rolling, and his primordial spirit in the inner world burst out with light. However, it was useless. Yuan Shaogang was instantly frozen in the void. Young hero, is there anything else? Yuan Shaogang reacted quickly. Knowing that he couldn't escape, he turned around and asked respectfully. The way he addressed him became very straightforward. I told you to scram, why did you fly? Li Daocheng said indifferently. Yuan Shaogang almost had a cerebral hemorrhage and fainted. You! Yuan Shaogang's face swelled to the color of a pig's liver. After holding it in for a while, he said, You want to go back on your word? Li Daocheng picked his ears and said, I told you to scram, but you didn't. Instead, you flew. If you want to talk about going back on your word, it's you, a little bastard. Moreover, for a lowly cultivator like you, how can I go back on my word? Have you ever seen a person talk about honesty with an ant? Yu Yunshan couldn't help but laugh out loud again. Yuan Shaogang had just said this to Li He not long ago. Li Daocheng repeated it perfectly. This slap to the face was even more satisfying than slapping Yuan Shaogang's face directly. Little bastard, ah! Yuan Shaogang could no longer hold back the grievance in his heart and cursed. Chapter 784. Li Daocheng swiped his finger across the air, and the 5 fearful men were instantly annihilated under the terrifying brilliance, disappearing without a trace. Yuan Shaogang could do nothing but roar. He looked at Li Daocheng with hatred like a madman. With a flash of lightning, Yuan Shaogang dissipated into the void and went to the resurrection point with his lunchbox. Awesome! Yu Yunshan was overjoyed. She felt indescribably comfortable. This revenge was as good as it could be. Li He, your boss, is a ruthless person. Can you bring me along? Easy, before the competition starts, find a place to hide. Those items are enough for you to break through in the Jiuquan God realm. You'll have to rely on yourself for the rest. Just as Yu Yunshan finished speaking, Li Daochong's voice sounded out. The two looked over, but Li Daochong was nowhere to be seen. Yu Yunshan looked embarrassed. She had just said that she wanted to follow him, but she was abandoned. Li He knew that Li Daochong had always been a maverick, so he was not surprised. Miss you, then let's part ways here. Li He said. Young Master Li, where are you going? According to boss, I'm going to find a secluded place to cultivate. Can you bring me along? Yu Yunshan suddenly asked. Li He was stunned for a moment. He did not expect Yu Yunshan to make such a request. After hesitating for a moment, he said, Of course. Yu Yunshan's eyes flashed with craftiness. She was actually interested in the large number of items Li He had just obtained, especially the spirit herbs. Coupled with the entering spirit pill, the soul formation stage was just around the corner. After Li Daochong left, he once again probed the 6th Imperial Capital. After confirming that there was nothing useful for him, he activated the 1,000-sound escape and appeared outside the 6th Imperial Capital in the blink of an eye. There was still a day and a half before the competition began. Li Daochong felt that rather than wandering around the city, it was better to calm down and feel what the Jiuquan God realm was. A spirit world that could cover the entire domain was unbelievable. Li Daochong was rather curious about what kind of laws it contained. Li Daochong found a mountain range and found an inconspicuous peak. He flew to the bottom of the valley and found a towering tree. He sat cross-legged on a branch in the crown of the tree and glanced around. Then, he slowly closed his eyes and entered a state of meditation. A wisp of divine sense condensed into a wisp of divine sense emerged from the top of Li Daochong's head and soon disappeared. For the next day and a half, Li Daochong sat quietly and entered a strange state. Thousands of strands of divine soul were scattered all over the place, meditating and comprehending the mysteries of the Jiuquan God realm. With Li Daochong's current cultivation, not to mention Jiuquan spiritual venerables, even ordinary spiritual venerables would find it difficult to comprehend. However, with the foundation of the Great Void swordsmanship, he could always understand some of the mysteries that belonged to himself. While Li Daochong was comprehending the Jiuquan God realm at his own pace, more and more participants entered the Jiuquan God realm. The competition had yet to officially start, but the 9 imperial capitals had already turned into a battlefield for treasure hunting. As time passed, all the participants knew that they wouldn't die in the Jiuquan God realm, they would only be sent to the resurrection point to report. However, if they died, they would randomly drop half of their belongings, whether they brought them in or plundered them here. In short, once they died, they would drop half of their belongings. Other than that, there would be no loss. Inside the 6th Imperial Capital, cultivators from 2 major forces were frantically searching for a green-robed cultivator, but to no avail. One of them was the Wang family, one of the 4 major families of the Black Tortoise Planet, a special-grade cultivation force headed by Wang Kaidai. The Black Tortoise Planet was a true spirit-grade cultivation planet within the Nankuan Empire. The strongest cultivator that could appear on a first-grade cultivation planet was a spirit-severing cultivator, while a special-grade cultivation planet was a void refinement cultivator. A true spirit cultivation planet was on another level. Generally speaking, it could produce a body integration cultivator, but at most, it could produce a tribulation transcendence cultivator. Further up was the top cultivation planet in the human territory spirit realm, the immortal cultivation planet. It could produce a Mahayana spiritual supremacy. There were less than 20 immortal cultivation planets in the human territory spirit realm, and the spirit chi on 8 of them was gradually weakening. Although the Black Tortoise Wang family was a cultivation force on a true spirit cultivation planet, it also had several large cultivation companies. However, because the ancestors of the Wang family were only at the peak of the void refinement and early body integration stage, they couldn't reach the level of a true spirit cultivation force. It was only a special grade cultivation force. However, it was already quite powerful. After being humiliated by Li Daochong, Wang Kaidai gathered all the young cultivators who were affiliated with the Wang family near the 6th imperial capital. There were a total of 23 people. The other force was naturally the low-grade special-grade cultivation force of the Yuan family on the Wuxia planet. They had more than 50 people compared to the Wang family, and all of them were wearing the same cultivation martial arts uniform. The two forces were fierce and aggressive, and had become the two most powerful forces in the 6th imperial capital. They would kill anyone who stood in their way. Even some powerful young cultivators were defeated by them. However, the real terror in the 6th imperial capital wasn't these two forces, but someone else. One of them was Lu Yuandao, who was ranked 5th on the Jade Clear Shaanxi Republic's prodigy list. He was a 4-star alchemist who owned the immortal spirit treasure Qingyang Furnace. His cultivation was at the mid-stage of the void refinement realm, and his combat power was at the late stage or peak of the body integration stage. The top 10 cultivators on the prodigy list were actually body integration stage old demons. There were only 30 of them in the entire human territory spirit realm, and they were the top geniuses among all the young cultivators. Lu Yuandao usually didn't show his strength, so many people knew about him, but not many had seen him. There was very little information about young cultivators at his level on the spirit net. When he first entered the Jiuxuan divine realm, he found a spiritual herb in a small medicine shop. Unexpectedly, he was seen by a few people who formed a group. Without any explanation, they came up and snatched it. In the end, those guys were killed in a single exchange. Who knew that one of them was from a special grade cultivation force? Then, they gathered people to take revenge on Lu Yuandao. There were more than 30 young cultivators, and their auras were like rainbows. However, in front of Lu Yuandao, it was useless no matter how many of them there were. The difference was too big. Lu Yuandao burned it all to the ground. Since then, the name Fire Demon was attached to Lu Yuandao, and no one dared to provoke him anymore. The participants in the 6th imperial capital had already guessed that this person was most likely someone on the prodigy list. The other one was Du Ruo, the grandson of the ethereal brain sect's great ancestor. He was ranked 4th on the prodigy list in the Kuan Empire. This guy was different from Lu Yuandao. Whether or not someone provoked him, he would attack. It all depended on his mood. If he was in a good mood, he would find a bar to drink and flirt with girls. If he was in a bad mood, he would kill anyone he saw and snatch their resources. As soon as he entered the Jiuxuan divine realm, he destroyed 2 forces that had gathered together and killed them all. The third one was Ngu, a god-level cultivator from the myriad prodigy talisman. He was ranked 6th on the Qian Tsang Empire's prodigy list and a 3-star spirit sequencer. He had countless talismans on him, and he couldn't use all of them. If someone dared to provoke him, he would use 1,000 talismans and kill hundreds of young cultivators in one go. After that battle, no one dared to get close to him. As long as the young cultivators nearby smelled the talismans, they would run away like stray dogs. These 3 were the truly terrifying existences near the 6th imperial capital. It wasn't just the 6th imperial capital. From the 1st imperial capital to the 9th imperial capital, there were monsters whose strength far surpassed the other young cultivators. It was obvious that these monsters were the ones ranked at the top of the prodigy list. However, even though there were many demon-level cultivators, the strongest ones were nowhere to be seen. The 3 top rankers of the 3 empires prodigy list, Yu Qinghe, Mo Chenxi, and Han Po, none of them appeared. It gave people the illusion that they didn't even enter the Jiuxuan spiritual realm. The 2-day waiting period passed quickly. Once the time was up, the entrance to the Jiuquan divine realm was closed. If there were still participants who didn't enter, they would be disqualified. On the 28th of July, 2390 of the Xing Yuan calendar, at 12 noon, Immortal Heavenly Lord's voice once again sounded in the consciousness of all the young cultivators. Of course, this time, no one outside heard it. Chapter 785. The 2-day time limit is up, and the entrance is closed. A total of 189.36 billion contestants have entered the Jiuquan Divine Light. The immortal spirit Venerable's voice sounded like it came from the depths of ancient times. You are the final number of contestants in this competition. In the 2-day time limit, almost all of you have fought at least once without rules. Some of you took the initiative to attack, and some of you were forced to attack. No matter which one it is, it's a good thing to be competitive. However, some people have violated morality and inhumanely tortured their compatriot. You can kill them and give them a quick death, but when you have the absolute advantage and control them, you still have to torture them in revenge. Some people have used forbidden techniques, and there are even a few bastards who stabbed their compatriots in the back in order to get treasures. They are treacherous and unscrupulous. There are also some perverts who took the opportunity to rape female cultivators. This violates the original intention of this competition. This kind of mentality is not suitable to enter the reincarnation road. You must know that your real opponent is Hades, not your compatriot. It's not wrong to be cruel and merciless, but the wrong thing is that you have no enmity in the past and no grievances, but you dare to do such a vicious thing. What's the difference between you and a beast? You bastards, if it weren't for the other spirit Venerable stopping me, I would have killed all of you. Those contestants who have violated morality and humanity will be eliminated. In addition, your files will be put on the watch list. You will be given a serious warning. If you are found to have violated morality and humanity again, you will be immediately exiled. The immortal spirit Venerable finished his words. All the contestants in the Jiuquan divine world were in an uproar. Who would have thought that the 2-day time limit was also within the scope of the competition? As the saying goes, there are all kinds of birds in the forest. Obviously, the forest in this competition was not ordinary. There were more than 180 billion contestants. These young cultivators represented the top young talents in the entire human domain spirit world. However, top talents did not mean that they were mentally healthy. The purpose of this competition was not to select the strongest, but to resist Hades. The core values could not be deviated. Otherwise, there would be a big mess in the future. How could a person who had even lost his humanity become the hope of the human domain spirit world? It was obviously impossible. No matter how talented this young cultivator was or how strong he was, he only cared about himself at the critical moment. He had no sense of responsibility and was even shameless and despicable, without any bottom line. If this kind of person took on such a big responsibility, it would only accelerate the destruction of the human realm's spirit world. At that time, Hades wouldn't even need to do anything, and you would be dead by yourself. 2 days. A total of 856 billion people have been eliminated. You will be ejected from the Jiuquan divine realm in the next 2 days. After you leave, please leave the Jiuquan divine light immediately. Otherwise, you will be engulfed by the divine light in 10 minutes, and your soul will be destroyed. The immortal spiritual Venerable paused for a moment before continuing. Among the 180 billion young cultivators, there were more than 85 billion who were despicable in nature, a ratio of 2%. 2 out of 100 contestants were like ticking time bombs. It might not be high, but it wasn't low either. After all, these young cultivators had already gone through many rounds of screening before coming here. They were all outstanding cultivators of their respective cultivation planet. As soon as the immortal spiritual venerable finished speaking, some young cultivators disappeared. Yuan Shaogong's heart skipped a beat, and he was a little nervous. Obviously, his style of doing things was quite similar to what the immortal spirit venerable had said. But after a few minutes, Yuan Shaogang didn't disappear. Yuan Shaogang secretly let out a sigh of relief. In fact, he hadn't been eliminated, and he had to thank Li Daochong. Because during this period, Yuan Shaogang had spent all his energy on searching for Li Daochong, which allowed him to hide his brutality. Every time there was one less competitor, it was a good thing for the remaining contestants. After a while, the immortal spiritual venerable's boundless voice sounded again. Now I will announce the specific rules of the first round of finals. From now on, all contestants are not allowed to fight in the imperial capital. Those who violate the rules will be eliminated immediately. Therefore, the imperial capital is a safe zone, but once you leave the imperial capital, there will be no restrictions. In the vast domain outside the 9 imperial capitals, there will be various levels of underworld ghosts and underworld beasts. As long as they are known creatures of the Hades, they may appear. Moreover, these creatures of the Hades are completely independent bodies of consciousness. Hunting them will give you military merit. The first round of finals will last for a year. When the 1-year duration was announced, all the contestants were in an uproar. Wasn't this too long? There were only 2 years before the opening of the reincarnation road. The first round of finals would last for a year. Was this a joke? Just as everyone was at a loss, the immortal spiritual venerable's boundless voice continued unhurriedly. From the moment I started to explain the rules, the flow of time in the Jiuxuan divine world has been adjusted by the Jiuxuan spiritual venerable. It is 1/30th of the outside world's flow of time. In other words, 1 month in the Jiuxuan divine world is equivalent to 1 day in the outside world, and 1 year is only 12 days. I see. Li Daochong, who was sitting on a branch of a towering tree, suddenly understood. He was also stunned just now. 1 year was too exaggerated. It didn't make sense. But if the flow of time was controlled, it made sense. Li Daochong smiled. He just happened to have more time to comprehend the mysteries of the Jiuxuan divine world's laws. At the end of the first round, those with less than 100,000 battle points will be eliminated. Once the time limit is up, the Jiuxuan divine world's spirit light in the Jiuxuan divine world will automatically calculate the result and eject those who don't meet the requirements from the Jiuxuan divine world. The second round of finals will begin immediately after the first round. It will last for half a year, and the flow of time will not change. At the end of the second round, those with less than 1 million battle points will be eliminated. By the way, I need to emphasize that if you die for any reason, besides losing half of your belongings, your battle points will also be halved. If you are killed by the Dark Ghost, your battle points will become the Dark Ghost's nutrients and let it evolve quickly. If you are killed by a contestant, your battle points will be accumulated and added to the contestant's battle points. There are supplies in the 9 imperial capitals, such as magic treasures, spirit herbs, high-grade spirit stones, and various materials. Contestants can trade with each other, but the bargaining chip must be battle points. If you use any other items or spirit stones to trade, you will not be able to take them out of the imperial capitals and will disappear. Oh, by the way, the supplies in the imperial capitals can't be taken casually. You have to use battle points to exchange for them. Of course, the initial price won't be too expensive. The items you obtain in these 2 days will be a big gift to you. If you don't obtain anything, you can only blame yourself for not being strong enough. Alright, the introduction of the rules ends here. The first round of the finals of the first Spirit World Youth Cultivation Competition officially begins. As the immortal Spirit Sovereign's boundless voice issued the final command, a brilliance that all contestants could see flashed in the sky above the Jiuxuan divine world. It passed in an instant. Then there was silence. In a red apricot forest not far outside the 6th imperial capital, four young cultivators who had formed an alliance revealed looks of joy after hearing the rules of the finals. The four young cultivators, 3 men and 1 woman, were led by a burly Yuanying peak body refiner. This person's bone age was already over 48 years old, and he was considered one of the older contestants. He looked more mature, like a middle-aged man. His name was Zhao Er. The other 3 were actually a bit higher in cultivation than Zhao Er, at the early soul formation stage, but their combat power was inferior to Zhao Er's. Zhao Er rubbed his chin. I thought we would have to rank in the end. I didn't expect that we just need to obtain 100,000 battle points to advance. It's much simpler than I thought. As long as the 4 of us work together against a common enemy and act cautiously, there's still hope for us to advance. The only female cultivator among the 4 was a tall figure wearing blue robes. Her name was Yu Yao, and she said with joy, I thought I wouldn't be able to last long. I didn't expect to last a year. Staying a year isn't a good thing. It also means that the sooner you obtain 100,000 battle points, the less safe you'll be. You'll be hunted down by the other contestants. Think about it, as long as they kill you, they can obtain 50,000 battle points. It's much easier than hunting down the dark ghosts one by one, the white-robed male cultivator said with a pessimistic expression. If worst comes to worst, we can just stay in the imperial capital and not come out after obtaining 100,000 battle points. A tall and slender male cultivator over 2 meters tall said shrewdly. Zhao Er saw that the 3 of them were expressing their opinions and was just about to show them his opinion when he was interrupted by a loud explosion. Boom! A mushroom cloud erupted less than 2 kilometers away from where the 4 of them were. There were people fighting. The 4 of them looked at each other. Zhao Er gave a look, and the 4 of them simultaneously used movement techniques to rush toward the explosion. Not long after, the 4 of them saw a dozen or so cultivators attacking something in an open space in the red apricot forest. Boss Zhao, aren't those people the Qiu family's contestants? The white-robed youth asked curiously from behind a large tree. Zhao Er nodded and didn't reply. His expression was somewhat solemn. That can't be right. These guys from the Qiu family have been wreaking havoc in the 6th imperial capital for the past 2 days. They've been snatching large amounts of resources and are extraordinarily powerful. How could a dozen or so people be beaten into such a sorry state? Yu Yao asked doubtfully. Just as she finished speaking, a miserable cry sounded. A cultivator's chest was pierced and he was sent flying. He landed not far away from the 4 of them and immediately dissipated. Soon, another 3 cultivators were killed. As the number of people decreased, only then did Zhao Er and the others see that the Qiu family's cultivators weren't attacking other cultivators, but rather a human-shaped giant wolf. Ghost beast Wu Wolf! The white-robed youth exclaimed. A ghost beast appeared just like that? The large youth didn't seem to be prepared. Huh! Zhao Er exclaimed with a puzzled expression. Wu Wolf is only a Yuanying-level ghost beast. The Qiu family has so many people, and all of them are at the peak of Yuanying or early deity transformation stage. How could they not be able to defeat a Wu Wolf? Wu Wolf? I've already killed 3 of them. It can't be this strong. Yu Yao was confused. As they spoke, another 5 cultivators from the Qiu family were easily killed by the Wu Wolf. The Wu Wolf was extremely fast, and its strength was shocking. Its defense was even more heaven-defying. More than 10 types of magic treasures couldn't hurt it at all. The Qiu family's cultivators died in miserable state. As long as it wasn't a fatal injury, their bodies wouldn't dissipate. Broken arms and legs were everywhere. Wu Leng grabbed one of the cultivators, opened his mouth wide and swallowed his head. The scene was incomparably terrifying. Yu Yao's face was pale, and her stomach was churning. The urge to vomit was extremely strong. In order to not expose herself, she forced herself to endure. In just a few minutes, The Chiu family's arrogant cultivators were easily wiped out by the Wu wolf. "B-boss, what do we do?" The white-robed youth was so frightened that he couldn't speak clearly. He looked at the Wu wolf in horror. Zhao Er's intestines were green with regret. "Say, why did they come here? Didn't they just get themselves killed?" So many experts from the Chiu family weren't a match, let alone the four of them. They couldn't escape, but it didn't seem good if they didn't. Howl! Before Zhao Er could figure out what to do, a terrifying wolf howl soared into the sky. The Wu wolf suddenly turned to look at the place where the four of them were hiding. Hiss! The four of them sucked in a breath of cold air. Chapter 786. Wu Lang found the location of the four. Zhao Er's eyes widened in horror as he roared, "Run!" Whoosh! 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 Without any hesitation, the four used their most powerful flying techniques and flew into the sky. The Wu wolf missed its target and roared angrily. Buzz! A pair of giant bat wings extended from Wu Lang's back as he chased after the four in a black streak. Zhao Er and the others didn't dare to look back. Wu Lang was less than 10 meters away from them, and their speeds reached a balance in a short time. "Spread out and run!" Zhao Er shouted. However, just as he finished shouting, black objects wriggled in all directions. Some turned into flying ghost beasts, while others turned into dark ghosts. The three of them wanted to spread out, but they were surrounded on all sides. It didn't make a difference whether they spread out or not. "Forget it, let's go together." Zhao Er's eyes dimmed as he changed his mind. Zhao Er looked big and burly, but he wasn't a brainless person. He flew for dozens of kilometers. Seeing that his spiritual energy was rapidly depleting, the four of them would become Wu Lang's food sooner or later. In fact, Zhao Er had been fleeing toward the mountain range. The terrain there was complicated, and he could use the terrain to escape if he couldn't fly. In fact, Zhao Er had another consideration. If he was really killed by Wu Lang, half of his belongings would be gone. Half of the items on their body would be lost. If they were in the forest, the chances of them being picked up by others were much lower than if they were in the open area or near the imperial capital. Zhao Er was very far-sighted. He had thought of everything in an instant. In the Jiuquan realm of the gods, there was no need to worry about life and death. However, for independent cultivators like them, every time they died, it meant that their strength would be sharply reduced. In the early stages, this was almost fatal. Once they died, they would lose their initial competitiveness and would lose at the starting line. They weren't very strong to begin with, and they would lose the initiative. Basically, it meant that they wouldn't be able to play in the later stages. It was equivalent to being eliminated early. If they weren't strong enough, they had to use their brains. Zhao Er didn't have a problem thinking this way. Escaping wasn't because they were afraid of death, but because they were afraid of losing treasures. In the past 2 days, the four of them had gained quite a lot, including the items they brought in. If they died, half of them would drop. The equipment that was dropped was random. If one was lucky, the equipment that was dropped would be unimportant. If one was unlucky, half of the equipment would be good. That would be the end of them. Their combat power would be halved, and they would benefit others. As soon as they entered the valley, Zhao Er dived in without a second thought. The other three naturally followed closely behind. Soon, they entered a forest filled with flame iron trees. The flame iron tree was tall and sturdy. An adult tree could not be wrapped around by 8 or 9 people. It was several hundred meters tall and had many branches. The tree crown was dense, and the tree was extremely hard. It had already reached the standard of making an Earth rank artifact. Therefore, the flame iron tree was an excellent cover. Even so, Zhao Er and the other three were still unable to shake off the wizard wolf that was relentlessly pursuing them. Along the way, 2 soul catchers that had appeared out of nowhere had joined them. Maintaining a flying speed that exceeded the limit consumed a lot of energy. Zhao Er and the other three could no longer hold on. The two soul-catcher ghosts shot out a few beams of black light, hitting Zhao Er and the other three. They lost their balance and fell from the sky. He broke dozens of branches and crashed onto the ground, rolling for dozens of meters before coming to a stop. The four of them crawled up in a sorry state, their eyes filled with terror. Buzz. 1. The wizard wolf flapped its huge wings and landed in front of the four. The two soul catchers landed at the same time. Two pairs of empty eyes looked at the four of them. They were no different from real Hades soul catchers. Zhao Er and the other three could not tell if they were in the real world or the Jiuquan divine realm. On the crown of a flame iron tree not far away, Li Daochong looked down at everything that was happening below without a change in his expression. When Zhao Er and the other three were flying over, Li Daochong had already sensed their intentions. Looking at the wizard wolf, Li Daochong's clear black eyes rippled. His divine perception had already detected that this wizard wolf was somewhat different from the ones outside. Its appearance, state, fur color, and attack methods were almost exactly the same as the ones outside. However, the wizard wolf in the outside world did not have wings and could not fly. Secondly, the wizard wolf's strength was not as strong. A peak cultivator like Yuanying could easily get rid of 2 or 3 wizard wolves. However, this wizard wolf that was formed in the Jiuquan divine realm was a level higher than the real Hades wizard wolf. Ordinary mid-stage soul formation cultivators would not be a match for it. This was a little too freakish. Li Daochong could not help but rub his chin. The Jiuquan divine realm was indeed mysterious. The fact that the Jiuquan spiritual sage could become one of the 3 spiritual sages in the human domain meant that she had transcended the mortal world. Her understanding of the laws must have reached an unimaginable level. The Jiuquan divine realm covered the entire human domain and was a projection of the spirit realm. It could also accommodate such a large number of primordial spirits and wills. At the same time, it created such a vast and mysterious world. There was no need to elaborate on how terrifying the Jiuquan spiritual sage was. Although she was a half-immortal, Li Daochong felt that she was not much different from an immortal. Li Daochong had been comprehending the Jiuquan divine realm's laws for nearly 2 days. It was naturally impossible for him to comprehend anything. However, he sensed an extremely special spiritual fluctuation in the Jiuquan divine realm, which was very different from the outside world. In other words, it was not a spiritual fluctuation at all. As everyone knew, spiritual energy was made up of spiritual particles. Spiritual particles were the most basic particles in the spirit realm. Of course, in addition to spiritual particles, there were also the 5 elements particles. Li Daochong thought that the Jiuquan divine realm was a kind of spiritual consciousness world projected by the Jiuquan spiritual sage, who was strong enough to affect the power of laws, using some kind of great magic that was close to immortal magic. However, after discovering this different spiritual fluctuation, Li Daochong's guess that the Jiuquan divine realm was a kind of spiritual consciousness world was completely overturned. If there were spiritual fluctuations, what was the difference between it and reality? However, one would not really die here, which was contrary to reality. After Li Daochong made this discovery, he became even more confused. As Li Daochong's thoughts flashed, a shout came from below. "Let's do it!" Zhao Er's face darkened, but there was no other way. Yu Yao and the other two's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. Since they were going to die anyway, they had to die beautifully. In any case, they were young cultivators who had entered the final round. Whoosh! A soul-catcher ghost flashed strangely and floated in front of the 4 in an instant. The half-spirit, half-body ghost hand punched out. Bang! The 4 flew back at the same time, crashing heavily into a flaming iron tree dozens of meters away. Zhao Er and the other 3 almost fainted. "A soul-catcher ghost is so powerful," the white-clothed youth said in despair. The witch-wolf was a witch-level ghost beast, which corresponded to the peak of the Yuanying level. There were two levels of soul catcher ghosts. There were Jin Dan level and Yuanying level. The most powerful one was the Soul Catcher Ghost King, which was at the peak of the late Yuanying level. In other words, the Soul Catcher Ghost was weaker than the Witch Wolf. Zhao Er and the other three weren't young, with bone ages in their 30s. They had been mercenaries and bounty hunters, and had fought many dark ghosts. They had killed countless Soul Catcher ghosts in the outside world. But just now, the four of them couldn't even take a single blow from the Soul Catcher ghost. Motherf *Ker, what's going on? How did these ghosts become so much stronger? Zhao Er cursed, unwilling to accept this. Yu Yao and the tall youth had nothing to say. They were already prepared to die for the first time, and their divine senses memorized the location. Ki. The Soul Catcher ghost let out a terrifying sound as it flew over. Its ghostly fingers transformed into 10 long vines that pierced toward Zhao Er and the other three. Clang! Clang! Suddenly, a bell rang in their ears. A brass light descended from the sky, and a brass bell appeared. Its swinging became more and more intense, and so did the sound. The Soul Catcher ghost let out a heart-wrenching scream. It retracted its fingers and turned to flee. But just as it turned, the ghost was shattered by the sound waves. Farther away, Wu Lang and the other Soul Catcher ghost revealed savage expressions, but before they could do anything, the other Soul Catcher ghost was sucked in by a powerful suction force. It was quickly sucked in the direction of the bell, but it was quickly dissipated by the spiritual energy sound wave. Only Wu Lang was able to hold on, but there was a hint of pain in its evil eyes. Zhao Er and the other three were stunned. Such a powerful dark ghost had been instantly killed. And the person who had come had not even shown himself. Zhan Tong was already so powerful just by taking out a magic treasure. Wouldn't the person himself be even more powerful? The four of them were both shocked and curious. Their curiosity was quickly satisfied. An earthen yellow light descended from the sky. A man wearing an earthen yellow Taoist robe landed in front of Zhao Er and the other three. Several more rays of light descended from the sky. A woman arrived with several young cultivators. Sitting on a branch of the flame iron tree, Li Daochong's eyes flashed. He recognized this woman. She was the unruly Queen Kaidai that he had met when he had just entered the Jiuxuan divine realm. After they landed, they glanced at Zhao Er and the other three. As for Wu Lang, they did not pay any attention to him. They seemed to be searching for something. Soon after, a handsome young cultivator said to Wang Kaidai, "Kaidai, we've almost searched the entire mountain range, but we still haven't found any traces of that kid. Maybe he knew he had offended someone he shouldn't have, so he left the 6th capital 2 days ago and headed to another capital city." Li Daochong felt that the youth who spoke was somewhat familiar, but he was sure that he had never seen him before. The aura he emitted was very unfamiliar. Li Daochong used his telekinesis. The youth who spoke was somewhat similar to Zhang Dongzhen. Could he be from the Zhang family? Li Daochong's guess was correct. The youth who spoke was Zhang Dongzhen's cousin, Zhang Haotian. He was also one of the strongest among them. Only the male Taoist was on par with him. Impossible. Wang Kaidai was extremely certain. She continued, "Brother Haotian, do you know how far the capital is from the other capitals? According to reliable sources, it's at least a few 100 million kilometers. Unless he has some heaven-defying flying treasure or one of the top few prodigies on the prodigy roll, even your brother Zhang Dongzhen would need a month or two to cross this distance. Putting aside the time, how many spirit herbs would he need to recover his strength? If even Wang Kaidai knew, how could Zhang Haotian not know? He came from the Zhang family, which was more powerful than the Wang family. However, Zhang Haotian did not want to spend too much energy on a groundless person. Apart from Wang Kaidai, no one knew what that kid looked like. He could only rely on Wang Kaidi's description to create a very vague image. He felt that it was very boring, so he casually guessed and wanted Wang Kaidai to give up the search. The finals had already begun. If he had the time, he might as well use it to earn battle merits and talk about love. He could also show off his muscles in front of the beauty. Wow, a few 100 million kilometers. That's very far. Zhang Haotian laughed. Hey, have you seen this person before? Wang Kaidai pressed her wristwatch and projected a figure for Zhao Er and the others to see. Zhao Er and the others looked for a long time, but they could not see the face of this person clearly. In confusion, the four of them shook their heads. Damn it, where is that little bastard hiding? Wang Kaidai gnashed her teeth. Chapter 787. After Wang Kaidai and the others appeared, Zhao Er and the other three immediately recognized that they were the Wang clan that had been causing havoc in the 6th imperial capital for the past 2 days. As for which Wang clan it was, it didn't matter. It was enough to know how powerful they were. The human domain was so big. Not to mention ordinary people, the number of cultivators there was also an astronomical number. There were as many big and small factions as there were hairs on a cow. There were many with overlapping surnames. The surname Wang was a big one. Whether it was a Wang clan or a faction, there were at least tens of thousands of them. Zhao Er and the other three came from an average cultivation company. They didn't even have a clan. Encountering a powerful group like Wang Kaidai, they could only pray for luck. Fortunately, the first round of the finals had just begun. They had 0 battle points. As for their equipment, the other party didn't care about it. They shouldn't kill them for no reason. As expected, after Wang Kaidai didn't get an answer from Zhao Er and the other three, she lost interest in them. Wang Kaidai turned to look at the witch wolf that was being controlled by the male Taoist and asked, "How many battle points did the 2 soul catcher ghosts give?" The male Taoist replied with a doubtful look, "Young miss, is there a mistake? 2 soul catcher ghosts only give 2 battle points." What? It wasn't just Wang Kaidai. The other young cultivators all exclaimed in unison. Even Zhang Haotian was dumbfounded. Soul catcher ghosts were not low-level dark ghosts. They were equivalent to Yuanian cultivators. In the Jiuxuan divine realm, their strength had increased. 1 soul catcher ghost only gave 1 battle point? 100,000 battle points were needed to kill 100,000 soul catcher ghosts. Zhao Er and the other three wondered if they had heard wrongly. They thought that since the soul catcher ghosts were so powerful, they should at least be small bosses and give at least a few hundred battle points. This was only 1 battle point? Was he playing with them? Dog Taoist, I don't have time to play with you. Tell me, how many battle points did you get? Wang Kaidai didn't believe it. The male Taoist had an innocent look. He raised his wristwatch and showed it to Wang Kaidai. "Young miss, see for yourself. Is there a need for me to play around with this?" Wang Kaidai glanced at it. The male Taoist's wristwatch clearly showed that he had killed 2 soul catcher ghosts and gained 2 battle points. Wang Kaidai's beautiful eyes flashed with an incomprehensible light. How much would he gain if he killed the witch wolf? Wang Kaidai stretched out her hand, and the azure dragon short sword that she had snatched 2 days ago appeared in a flash. The azure dragon dagger turned into a streak of azure light and shot towards Wu Lang. Under Wang Kaidai's control, the flying dagger chopped off the wolf's head in the blink of an eye. The witch wolf dissipated. Wang Kaidai's wristwatch automatically showed that she had killed a gray-silver wizard wolf. She had received 2 points. The gray-silver wizard wolf was much more powerful than the soul catcher, but it only had 2 points. Roar! At this moment, an ear-piercing wolf howl rang out from the forest of the flame sago trees. In the valley, the howl became even more hollow and resounding. It was so loud that people's heads were buzzing. Weaker cultivators would have fainted from the shock. The ground shook visibly. Wang Kaidai's heart skipped a beat. She coldly looked in the direction of the voice. The Taoist priest and Zhang Haotian simultaneously moved in front of Wang Kaidai to protect her. To put it bluntly, the first and second rounds of the finals were just about killing monsters to earn points. The monsters were the nether ghosts, nether devils, and ghost beasts. However, in the Jiuquan divine realm, these monsters did not have any aura of death on them. They were not true Hades creatures. They were a type of spiritual mimicry hatched in the Jiuquan divine realm. Li Daochong was also curious as to how they came to be. Was it created by the Jiuquan divine realm with her powerful divine sense? Or was it some kind of great divine ability? Or was it an energy body that was channeled into the Jiuquan divine realm? Killing a mid-level nether monster only gave him so few battle merit. It was unexpected, but it was also within reason. Li Daochong, who was sitting cross-legged in the treetop, stroked his chin and smiled. He muttered to himself in a voice that only he could hear. I knew that the first round of the finals wouldn't be so simple. 100,000 points in a year, hee. It won't be easy to get them. Wang Kaidai and the others realized that it wouldn't be easy to get the points, so they immediately changed their strategy. Wang Kaidai was willful, but she wasn't brainless. She really hated Li Daochong to the bone and wanted to teach this brat a lesson for daring to offend her. However, Wang Kaidai still knew what was more important. If she continued to waste time looking for him, it would directly affect the progress of the competition. Let's go and hunt. Let's not look for that brat for now. Wang Kaidai was very unwilling, but there was nothing she could do. The Taoist priest and Zhang Haotian looked at each other and smiled. This young miss still had some brains. The group then flew into the sky. Zhao Er and the others secretly heaved a sigh of relief. To them, this group of people was even more terrifying than Wu Lang. After all, people's hearts were unpredictable. If they were unhappy, they could destroy them in a matter of minutes. Boss, we can't stay here for long. Yu Yao was still in shock. Damn it, the Hades ghosts in the Jiuquan divine realm are too strong. For safety's sake, let's go to an area with more people near the imperial capital. The Hades ghosts there might be weaker. Zhao Er cursed. The others didn't have any objections. It would be good to go back to the imperial capital and ask about the situation. Then, the four of them took out their magic treasures and flew into the sky. After everyone had left, on the tree, Li Daochong stretched his back and slowly descended. Li Daochong looked lazy, but killing intent flashed through his eyes. He swept past hundreds of flaming iron trees and landed on a shadow deep in the forest. That shadow had formed long before Wang Kaidai and the others had arrived. It was just that it wasn't fully formed. In addition, there was no such thing as death chi. Without a powerful divine sense like Li Daochong's, it would be very difficult to discover its existence. Li Daochong's divine sense was greatly suppressed in the Jiuquan divine realm. Its range was only a few dozen kilometers. Apart from its precision, everything else was greatly compressed. It was as if the Jiuquan divine realm was intentionally weakening the divine sense of cultivators. Two pairs of eyes stared at Li Daochong from the depths of the shadow. The Hades ghosts here could also become stronger by killing competitors. Immortal Spirit Sovereign had said that the Hades ghosts could become stronger through battle merits, but he hadn't said the whole story. It wasn't just battle merits. The Hades ghosts could also obtain battle merits by killing competitors. It wasn't a one-sided battle to begin with. The Jiuquan Spirit Sovereign's projection wasn't a competition arena, but a battlefield. A battlefield where humans and Hades creatures hunted and killed each other. Whoosh! A black streak suddenly shot over, aimed at the back of Li Daochong's head. Li Daochong didn't move at all. The black streak directly entered the back of his head. Li Daochong then froze in place, as if he had entered a meditative state. From the shadow deep in the forest, a tall humanoid creature walked out. This humanoid creature was covered in bulging muscles. Its face was ferocious, and its fangs extended from its mouth. Its face was ashen. It was a mutated zombie ghost. Zombie ghosts were one of the very few Hades ghosts with pure physical bodies. However, their physical bodies were actually corpses. This zombie ghost had already evolved into a zombie ghost king. Beside it there was also a thin and short girl. If one didn't look carefully, they would think that it was a human woman with disheveled hair and tattered white clothes. In reality, she didn't have a physical body. Her legs floated in the air, giving her an eerie appearance. Vengeful woman, a grand ghost king among grand ghost-level Hades ghosts. Li Daochong had met these two types of Hades ghosts a long time ago. At the time, he was still on Blue Bay Star, still a foolish young master in the eyes of others. When he followed old Devil Zhang into a flying ghost shuttle to search for treasure, the final boss he met was the vengeful woman. The zombie ghost and the vengeful woman were a pair of parasites. Where there was a zombie ghost, there would be a vengeful woman, and where there was a vengeful woman, there would also be a zombie ghost. But outside, the vengeful woman and the zombie ghost were only grand ghost-level Hades ghosts. A Foundation establishment realm cultivator could deal with them, and a Jean Dan cultivator could kill them with a flick of their finger. But here, they couldn't be judged based on the strength of the outside world. The two ghostly beings caught a big fish as soon as they appeared. They couldn't help but reveal a smile on their ferocious faces. They detected that the cultivator under their control was at the peak of the nascent soul stage. Killing him would be enough to increase their strength by another level. The zombie ghost and the vengeful woman walked forward as if they were taking a stroll, but with every step they took, the two ghosts would leap several dozen meters forward as if they were teleporting. In just a few steps, they arrived in front of Li Daochong. The zombie ghost looked at the unlucky cultivator in front of it, saliva flowed out of its fanged mouth, a gurgling sound came from its throat. Its eyes glowed with greed as it looked at the vengeful woman with desire. The zombie ghost was asking the vengeful woman to eat its prey. The vengeful woman looked up, anger flashed across her pale black face, her small cherry mouth suddenly opened as if it was being ripped apart. Ah! The vengeful woman let out a terrifying scream, her meaning was clear, telling the zombie ghost to scram, this prey was hers. The zombie ghost was so scared that it took a step back, extremely afraid of the vengeful woman. Fellow Dao Seeker Qian, there's something here. Suddenly, a shout came from above. Following that, 3 young cultivators on flying swords flew down, landing in front of the zombie ghost and the vengeful woman. The 3 young cultivators wore different robes, their auras weren't weak at all, not much weaker than Wang Katie's group. They were all Ascended Realm late stage. Among the normal participants, they could be considered strong. Ah, zombie ghost, vengeful woman, not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth, the yellow-clothed young man said with disdain. Just now, the 3 of them worked together to kill quite a few nether ghosts. Most of them were soul-catcher ghosts and witch wolves. The strongest one was a horse-faced man. After killing so many powerful ghosts, the 3 of them only got an average of 7 points. How many zombie ghosts and vengeful women could there be? They probably didn't even get a single point. For a moment, the 3 of them lost a bit of interest. But since they're already here, even a mosquito leg is meat, they'll just get rid of it and go find other good stuff. Fellow Dao Seeker Een, there's another unlucky bastard, why don't we get rid of him as well? He's just a Yuanian cultivator. He probably doesn't have anything good, we can earn some recovery pills, the green-clothed young cultivator said without much interest. Fellow Dao Seeker Qian, fellow Dao Seeker Een, let this son do it this time, there's no need to split so little points, the other young cultivator in brown robes said. Go ahead, the yellow-clothed young man shrugged. The young man surnamed Sun didn't hesitate and pointed his finger in the air. Jade ring rain, cloud break, he chanted. His flying sword shot towards the zombie ghost's chest like lightning. Clang! The flying sword hit its target with a loud metallic sound, it sounded like it had a lot of power behind it. But the flying sword couldn't even pierce through the zombie ghost's skin. When the zombie ghost and vengeful women landed on the ground, they looked at the 3 of them as if they were idiots. What? The young man surnamed Sun was shocked. His famous jade ring rain sword had no effect on the zombie ghost. What the hell is this? Even if there was an army of 1,000,000 zombie ghosts outside, the young man's surnamed son could destroy them with a flick of his finger. He was an Ascension late-stage cultivator. The zombie ghost was just a big ghost, something that Foundation establishment cultivators could deal with. On the frontline battlefield, Ascension cultivators were the backbone of the forces. They definitely couldn't fight big ghosts, because there was no need to. For an Ascension cultivator to deal with a zombie ghost, it wasn't like using an anti-aircraft gun to kill a mosquito, it was like using an atomic bomb to kill a mosquito. It was pure nonsense. But this wasn't the real world, it was the Jiuquan God realm. Not only was the young man's surnamed son shocked, Qian and Yin were also in disbelief. Divinity transformation cultivators couldn't deal with zombies? What was going on? Before the three of them could recover from their shock, what happened next made them feel as if they had seen a ghost to the nth power. The zombie ghost grabbed the flying sword, and with a snap, the flying sword broke. The three young cultivators, who could definitely be considered geniuses in the human realm, were completely dumbfounded. The flying sword of the youth surnamed Sun was made from mysterious yang gold, and was a mystic comprehending high-grade magic treasure. Even piercing through a Wu ghost's Wu body would be a piece of cake. It was incomparably tough, yet it was broken by a zombie just like that. The wronged woman stuck out her scarlet tongue and licked her lip. She had just caught one big fish when another 3 super big fish came. It was hard not to eat it. Keek. The innocent girl could not help but let out a terrifying laugh. Whoosh! The wronged woman's body disappeared. At the same time, the zombie ghost stomped on the ground and shot towards the 3 cultivators like a cannonball. The 3 of them knew that the situation was not good, but they were not weak after all, so they were not scared out of their wits. They did not dare to be careless, and the spiritual energy in their bodies exploded, ready to fight with all their strength. Slap! However, before the youth surnamed Sun could use his magic, the zombie ghost's black iron-like claws had already slapped the top of his head. The youth surnamed Sun was stunned. Crack, crack, crack. Then came the sound of bones breaking. Bam! The youth surnamed Sun's head fell to the ground like a watermelon, and was crushed by the zombie ghost. In the next moment, the body of the late-stage divinity transformation cultivator dissipated, leaving behind a pile of items, and went to the resurrection point. Qian and Yin were dumbfounded. Only now did they realize how terrifying the zombie ghost and the wronged woman they encountered were. But before they could react, the light in the youth surnamed Qian's eyes suddenly dimmed, and he held his head with a pained expression. Fellow Taoist Qian. The youth surnamed Yin did not understand and just called out. Whoosh! The youth surnamed Qian suddenly raised his sword and cut off the youth surnamed Yin's head. The former's eyes were no longer white. The young man surnamed Qian became the carrier of the wronged woman, turning into a wronged demon, and his strength rose to another level. Chapter 788. 2 Ascended Realm cultivators couldn't even retaliate before they were instantly killed by 2 clearly weak dark ghosts. If this happened in the real world, it would be a nightmare for the human race. Jiuquan Divinity Realm's zombies and wronged women were ridiculously strong. The cultivator surnamed Qian, who was possessed by the wronged woman, had a ferocious expression, no longer having any consciousness of his body. After killing the cultivator surnamed Yin in one strike, it roared towards the sky and stabbed towards Li Daochong, who had been standing still for a long time. Jiuquan Divinity Realm's dark ghosts didn't need to devour cultivators. Killing them would give them a boost in soul points, basically a reward system. After being possessed by the wronged woman and turning into a wronged demon, their strength would at least double. They were as fast as lightning, almost like teleportation within a short distance. If they could instantly kill an Ascended Realm late-stage cultivator, a Yuanian cultivator was nothing. But right as the wronged demon was about to stab the cultivator's chest, A strange scene appeared in front of the wrong demon's eyes. The cultivator suddenly turned around, opened his eyes and smirked. The wrong demon's speed was as fast as lightning, but at this moment, everything seemed to be in slow motion. Li Daochong swung his fist, not using much strength, just a simple punch. The wrong demon felt a terrifying force rushing towards him. Boom! There was a sound of explosion that was neither loud nor soft. Just like that, the host body of the cultivator surnamed Xian was reduced to ashes. The wronged woman screamed, gave up on possessing the body, and flew away. Li Daochong being shot in the back of his head was intentional. That was the wronged woman's soul manipulation technique. This level of soul manipulation technique was nothing compared to Li Daochong's powerful inner sight. The reason why Li Daochong didn't dodge and let the wronged woman attack him was because he wanted to sense the mysteries of the dark ghost's dark techniques in Jiuxuan divinity realm. After spending a bit of time, Li Daochong basically understood that the dark ghosts here were condensed from the power of laws in Jiuxuan divinity realm. Their attacks were also the same. After the wronged woman escaped, the dark ghost's face went pale, as if he had seen something terrifying. He didn't stop at all and ran away. But could he run away? Li Daochong's figure flashed and appeared in front of the innocent woman. The wronged woman let out a roar and flew towards Li Daochong, attempting to invade his body. Li Daochong smiled lightly and was just about to make a move when a huge fist landed on his back with a bang. Zombie launched a sneak attack. Crack! The sound of bones breaking. Li Daochong's spirit body had already reached the next level, so he didn't feel the zombie's punch at all. The zombie's arm, however, was twisted out of shape. However, this still caused Li Daochong to be slightly distracted, and the wronged woman took the opportunity to invade Li Daochong's body. In the blink of an eye, the innocent woman's face revealed a sinister smile. However, when it really entered Li Daochong's body, the sinister smile on its face froze as a wave of divine sense, which was extremely powerful to it, rushed towards it. With a loud the innocent woman who had just entered was sent flying. If this wasn't Jiuxuan's divine realm, Li Daochong would have already devoured the innocent woman. Unfortunately, the dark ghost here wasn't a real dark ghost. The innocent woman lost all thoughts, knowing that the young cultivator in front of it was far stronger than it could ever imagine. They weren't even on the same level. He had been toying with it from the very beginning. If he was serious, he would have already killed it and the zombie in one shot. The wronged woman fled in a panic, but before she could fly out, she was grabbed by the ankle with a smack. The innocent woman turned around in fear, only to see Li Daochong smirking at her while grabbing her ankle with one hand. Roar! With a loud roar, the zombie attacked in a frenzy. Li Daochong's other hand flashed with lightning. Crack, crack! A strand of lightning shot out. The zombie didn't even have time to display its strength before it was reduced to ashes by the lightning. The innocent woman's body also flashed with lightning before disappearing without a trace. Li Daochong's wristwatch immediately displayed the result. Killed an innocent woman, 4 battle merit points gained. Killed a zombie, 3 battle merit points gained. Li Daochong pursed his lips. The strength of these two ghosts in the Jiuxuan's divine realm was at the peak of deity transformation. To think that they only had so little battle merit points. No wonder the first round only required 100,000 battle merit points. It sounded easy, but most of the participants would probably be crying right now. This was many times more difficult than the one-on-one battles of the spiritual beasts in the preliminary round. Not to mention their cultivation base, those below the void refinement realm could basically forget about passing the first round. Li Daochong naturally wasn't afraid, but to have him hunt down these pitiful dark ghosts one by one was simply too much. He wasn't willing to do that either. Instead of wasting his energy to kill them one by one, he might as well go to the imperial capital and find a place to continue comprehending the profundities of the 9 profound divine realm. After a few months, he would come out and find those participants who had more battle merits to snatch them. Li Daochong had already made up his mind. A faint smile appeared on his face as he casually put away the equipment dropped by the three cultivators into his storage ring. There were quite a few items, but equipment of this level was completely useless to Li Daochong. If it weren't for the fact that he could trade them for battle merit points, he wouldn't even bother to take them. After putting them all away, Li Daochong flew toward the 6th Imperial Capital. The Imperial Capital was a safe zone, so it could save him a lot of trouble. Li Daochong wasn't afraid of staying outside, but it would inevitably disturb his comprehension. If some idiot suddenly appeared at the checkpoint to harass him, it would affect his comprehension. In just a few breaths' time, Li Daochong was already over 10 kilometers away from the Imperial Capital. He then withdrew the 1,000-sound evasion and flew toward the Imperial Capital at normal speed. The 6th Imperial Capital was shrouded in a faint layer of light. Within this range, no participant was allowed to engage in any kind of battle. If they were discovered, they would be eliminated immediately. So far, no nether ghost or nether demon had appeared in the Imperial Capital. As for whether they would appear, none of the participants knew. The immortal spirit sovereign didn't say whether or not they would appear. When Li Daochong arrived near the Imperial Capital, he didn't immediately enter the city. Instead, he leisurely scanned his surroundings. The area within 20 to 30 kilometers of the Imperial Capital had become a hunting paradise for the weaker participants. Only some low-level ghost beasts and nether ghosts appeared in this area. Although they were also very powerful, they could still be killed. Li Daochong couldn't help but recall the beginner's village in some online games he had played before. The beginner's strength was naturally very weak. He could only find some mud frogs, deer, and scarecrows to kill. "Little bastard, so you're here." Just as Li Daochong was observing, a shout came from the side. Yuan Shaogang came over aggressively with a group of cultivators dressed in orange Taoist robes. Two of them had reached the early-stage void refinement realm and were even stronger than Yuan Shaogang. Li Daochong glanced at them from the corner of his eyes, yawned, and flew into the Imperial Capital. "Where are you going?" Yuan Shaogang instantly sped up. The two void refinement realm cultivators were even faster. However, just as they were about to catch Li Daochong disappeared into the halo. "Damn it!" Yuan Shaogang cursed and watched as Li Daochong, who had entered the halo, turned around and looked at him indifferently. "Come out if you have the guts." Yuan Shaogang was exasperated. Li Daochong glanced at Yuan Shaogang in boredom. This guy didn't even have any battle credit. Li Daochong was too lazy to make a move. He turned and flew into the Imperial Capital. Yuan Shaogang was unwilling to give up. He also entered the halo and chased after Li Daochong. The other two void refinement realm cultivators followed closely behind. The two of them were Yuan Shaogang's biological brothers. The three of them were the three heroes of the Wu Sha planet's Yuan family. Yuan Shaogang was the weakest. After Yuan Shaoyang and Yuan Shaokai learned that their younger brother Yuan Shaogang was bullied, they were furious. After all, the Yuan family was a top-class cultivation force in the Kuan Empire. When had they ever suffered such humiliation? If they didn't get back at him, how could they swallow this anger? After 2 days of searching for Li Daochong, they finally found him. In the end, this kid used the rules to enter the Imperial Capital. They couldn't make a move here. The three brothers saw their enemy right in front of them, but they couldn't do anything. The grievance in their hearts was unbearable. Yuan Shaogang followed Li Daochong and kept provoking him with words. However, Li Daochong acted as if he didn't hear anything. He treated Yuan Shaogang as heir and went to a fixed-point trading center in the 6th Imperial Capital. The first round of the finals had only started 2 hours ago. There were already many contestants who had obtained battle points and were trading here. After the contestants felt the difficulty of fighting monsters, they realized that in the early stages, battle points weren't important. The most important thing was to quickly improve their strength. Only by becoming stronger would one be able to gain battle merits faster, especially at the beginning. Li Daochong ignored the 3 Yuan brothers. He entered the trading center and took out the equipment, magic weapons, and elixirs he had just obtained. He placed them on the stall to sell. These items were useless to Li Daochong, but to the other contestants, there were still many good items. There were 4 or 5 mid-grade mystic-level treasures and 3 high-grade ones. Soon, someone came up to inquire about the price. However, with the Yuan family messing around, the transaction couldn't be completed. Li Daochong didn't care. He sat down cross-legged and entered a meditative state. Time passed little by little. 2 hours passed quickly. No matter what Yuan Shaogang said, it was useless. It was like playing the lute to a cow. Seeing Li Daochong ignore him, Yuan Shaogang couldn't do anything. An hour ago, the 6th Imperial Capital's battle points rankings were officially opened. In an instant, the top 1 billion contestants' names appeared on the rankings. Once the rankings were out, the contestants were greatly stimulated. Who didn't want to be ranked at the top? Even if it was just showing their faces, it would be good. This was because not only could all the contestants in the Jiuquan Divine Realm see the rankings, but the factions supporting the contestants outside could also see it. Yuan Shaogang's eyes spat fire. Little bastard, if you want to be a coward, then be a coward. If you have the ability, then don't ever leave the imperial capital. After saying that, the 3 Yuan brothers left the trading center and led a group of young cultivators out of the imperial capital. Li Daochong slowly opened his eyes. He didn't listen to what Yuan Shaogang said just now. He was meditating to comprehend the laws of the Jiuquan Divine Realm. After the 3 Yuan brothers left, Li Daochong's stall became lively again. Many contestants had already set their eyes on it. Brother, how much is this flying sword? Friend, how much is that bottle of recovery spirit medicine? Brother, I've taken a liking to that magic robe. Give me a straightforward price. If it's suitable, then I'll buy it. One by one, the contestants surrounded Li Daochong's stall. Hee, don't be in a hurry. Come one by one. The price is absolutely fair. I guarantee that you'll be satisfied. This flying sword is made of a special material. It's refined from profound yang gold. It's definitely a good item. Fixed price, 20 battle merits. Li Daochong was familiar with the process. Li Daochong felt as if he had returned to the days when he was selling low-grade spirit talismans on the Blue Bay Star. What? 20 battle merits? Brother, did you make a mistake? 2 battle merits, right? The young man who asked the price had a doubtful expression. No, I didn't make a mistake. You heard me clearly. 20 battle merits it is. I'll sell it at a discounted price. Li Daochong immediately replied. Damn, why don't you go rob a bank? Do you know how powerful those ghost beasts and nether ghosts are? Killing a soul catcher only gives you 1 battle merit, and a gray silver witch wolf only gives you 2 battle merit. 20 battle merits is enough to get you on the ranking board. The young man who asked the price glared. I'm not forcing you to buy it. If you can't afford it, then don't buy it. Come. Next, please make way, Li Daochong replied in a very unscrupulous manner. Are you selling it for 10 battle merits? I can't go any higher. The young man who asked the price wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. After talking for so long, he actually wanted to lower the price. This is a small business. I don't bargain. If you bargain, I won't reply. Isn't it just 1 word? I'll only say it once, Li Daochong replied firmly. Brother, I'll take the 20 battle merits. An enchanting female voice came from the side. When this voice reached Li Daochong's ears, he inexplicably shuddered. In an instant, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and saw Yu Yan looking at him with a smile. Her phoenix eyes curved into crescent. Li Daochong's heart skipped a beat. Why was this woman here? Was she also participating in the competition? That wasn't the main point. The main point was that Li Daochong had promised Yu Yan at the Blue Bay Star not long ago that he would go to the Dragon Fang to teach those brats for a few days. In the end, he still forgot about it. Wonderful book house. Chapter 789. As soon as Yu Yan opened her mouth, the young man became anxious. I saw it first. Why are you in such a hurry? First come, first serve. If it weren't for the fact that fighting was prohibited in the imperial capital, Yu Yan really wanted to tear this guy apart. You offered 10 points and he didn't want to sell it. You're the first one. The young man glared at Yu Yan. It's human nature to bargain. Can't I ask? Li Daochong grew impatient. I've changed my mind. 25 points. Whoever wants it, trade immediately. Yu Yan was about to open her mouth in a fit of pique, but the young man gritted his teeth and hurriedly said, I'll take it. Li Daochong glanced at the young man as if to say, You're such a drag. Why didn't you just save 5 points earlier? After the trade was completed, the young man took the flying sword. He felt a little pained when he paid, but now that he had obtained the treasure he wanted, the haze in his eyes was swept away. He immediately left to test his skills. The items that Li Daochong put out were all sold in a short while. He sold them for a total of 200 points and made a lot of money. He had earned so much without even moving a finger. Li Daochong's name soared up the rankings and quickly entered the top 300 million. With such a large base, this ranking was considered good. Yu Yan stubbornly waited for Li Daochong to finish his business. She said angrily, Li Daochong, you lied to me again? Li Daochong scratched his head and smiled apologetically. Commander Yu, Li really didn't do it on purpose. There were too many trivial matters, so I forgot. Yu Yan wished she could eat Li Daochong alive. He had stood her up twice, and each time, he had promised that he would go. But in the blink of an eye, he had forgotten about it completely. Why didn't you forget your head? This time, when I went to Dragonfang, I promised that Rado Shinji would personally come to guide the training. Do you know how embarrassed I was afterwards? Yu Yan revealed a ferocious look. Li Daochong blushed with shame. I'll go after the competition. Yu Yan's expression darkened and then she scolded. Why are you still going? Dragon Teeth has already been disbanded. No one wants to stay with a fallen divine general. Li Daochong shrugged. He had never had a good impression of the Federation's cultivation army. After all, in the beginning, his father Li Tianyang encountered all kinds of things because there were traitors and people with ulterior motives in the cultivation army. Otherwise, his father wouldn't have been labeled a traitor a few years ago and almost went down in history as a notorious traitor. Although Li Tianyang was later rehabilitated and judged not to have committed treason, the matter was hastily closed. There was no clear explanation, and it was not clear who was behind it. Li Daochong wanted to get to the bottom of it, but at that time, his strength was limited and he couldn't expose himself. A series of things happened later. Li Daochong didn't have time to care about this matter. Li Tianyang later told Li Daochong that there were some things that he didn't need to investigate too deeply. Where there were people, there would be the underworld. People's hearts were unpredictable, and it would be terrible if they really found out. Li Tianyang seemed to know who did it, but he didn't want to investigate. To put it bluntly, he was just a sacrifice in the struggle for power. Therefore, Li Daochong subconsciously didn't have a good impression of the cultivation army. This was also why he repeatedly refused Qin Zhan and Yu Yan's invitations and refused to join the army. Qin Zhan would send a sincere invitation to Li Daochong almost every time he saw him. He would constantly express his goodwill and give him a position and military rank. However, Li Daochong either refused or accepted on the surface, but he didn't take it to heart at all. The position of Dragon Tooth Instructor was quite high in the Federation. It was a miracle that Qin Zhan could apply for it. Li Daochong had never fulfilled his duties, which was a violation of military discipline. However, in the end Qin Zhan suppressed it. After all, Qin Zhan promised that Li Daochong wouldn't be restrained in any way. Of course, all this was no longer important. The Federation's founding ancestor, Supreme Silver Flame, had been scared to death by Li Daochong. Who would dare to provoke him? Li Daochong was the #1 person in the Shenghua Federation. Everyone in the upper echelon of the cultivation world knew about him. Since the establishment of the Shenghua Federation, Li Daochong was the first cultivator born and raised in the Federation to step into the voiding realm. No one in the Federation could compare to this glory. If not for the fact that Li Daochong didn't like to keep a high profile, he would have become the national idol of the Shenghua Federation. Therefore, Li Daochong didn't feel much about the loss of the dragon tooth. It's good that it's gone. Li doesn't have to go. Yu Yan almost fainted in anger when she heard this. Li Daochong, you didn't go on purpose, did you? Li Daochong coughed. Well, Commander Yu, Li has something to do. I'll take my leave first. With that, Li Daochong slipped out of the trading center. Yu Yan grabbed Li Daochong. Don't run. Explain it to me. Li Daochong turned to look at Yu Yan. Suddenly, his gaze went past her angry face and looked behind her. With a shocked expression, he said, Damn, why are you here, Chief Qin? Yu Yan was stunned. She was a little confused. What? Qin Zhan, that bastard, is here too? Why didn't I know? With that, Yu Yan turned to look. There was no one there. She instantly knew that she had been tricked. When she turned around again, there was no sign of Li Daochong. Li Daochong knew Yu Yan too well. If he was caught by her, there would be no end to it. Of the 36 stratagems, escape was the best stratagem. After leaving the trading center, Li Daochong went to a training hall in the 6th capital. There were hundreds of training halls in the entire capital for the participants to cultivate. One could cultivate while fighting monsters. After all, there was a year's time. The Jiuxuan spirit sage had put in a lot of effort. Although only 100,000 people would advance in the competition, it didn't mean that the rest would be abandoned. As long as the young cultivators were diligent, they would have a great breakthrough even if they were eliminated after a year. Li Daochong came out of the trading center. Someone had been following him all the way to the training hall marked number 10. Li Daochong found it funny. He didn't care about the person following him. When he arrived at the training hall, he found a secluded place and sat down cross-legged. He immediately meditated to comprehend the power of law. There were all kinds of cultivation areas in the training hall. Most people would choose the cultivation room or the combat room. Very few people would choose the meditation square. At this moment, Yuan Shaogang and his 2 brothers were outside the capital hunting dark ghosts to accumulate battle merit. In an hour, the 3 of them had killed dozens of dark ghosts and obtained dozens of battle merit. Young Master Yuan, that kid has left the trading center. Yuan Shaogang killed a soul catcher ghost. A secret message came immediately. That little bastard left the city? Yuan Shaogang immediately asked. No, he's meditating at the number 10 training hall. The voice transmission immediately replied. Yuan Shaogang was stunned. He cursed, that coward. I want to see how long he's going to hide. Continue to monitor him. As soon as he leaves the capital, inform me immediately. Yes. In a mountain range hundreds of kilometers away, Wang Kaidai and the others hunted ghost beasts and dark souls like wildfire. They were invincible. Many young cultivators who passed by were envious. Even the vengeful Bone King was easily killed by them. One had to know that a single vengeful Bone King was worth 30 battle merit. Young miss, the person you're looking for has appeared in the capital. In the capital? He doesn't want battle merits? Wang Kaidai was confused. Young miss, I don't know. That kid did some business at the trading center first. Then he went to the training hall. He's meditating now. Meditating? Wang Kaidai was going crazy. Did water enter this guy's brain? He still had the time to meditate? Could it be that he knew he wasn't strong enough and gave up? Yes. The spy replied and sent the image of Li Daochong meditating. He was afraid that the hot-tempered young miss would think that he was lying. After seeing the image, Wang Kaidai was convinced. She snorted and said, "Keep an eye on him. As soon as he leaves the city, inform me immediately." Yes. Both forces sent people to monitor Li Daochong's every move. Li Daochong did whatever he wanted, treating them as heir. At the same time, everyone's attention was focused on the ranking board. However, it would take some effort for the outside world to see the ranking board. Not everyone was qualified to see it. 2 days ago, on the cloud platform of the Kunlun Spirit Pagoda, several higher-ups led by Nailan Shou, including Voodoo King, watched all the contestants from Kunlun Head to the Jiuxuan Divine Light Pagoda. When the last contestant left, a ray of light flew over from the void. It appeared on the cloud platform in an instant. When the people of Kunlun Heavy Industries saw the newcomers, their hearts skipped a beat and they sucked in a cold breath. Even Nailan Shou, a tribulation-passing cultivator, was surprised. "Fellow Taoist Luo, what brings you to the Kunlun planet? Why, didn't you take your flying chariot?" The newcomer was wearing a gorgeous battle robe. He looked like a majestic general who charged into the battlefield in ancient times. He had a square face, slanted eyebrows, a wide nose, and thick lip. His whole face was imposing. This person's surname was Luo. Not many people knew him, but everyone in the Kuan Empire knew his other name. Divine Lord Vajra, an early-stage tribulation-passing cultivator. "Haha, I'm here on the orders of the Spirit Lord to bring you to the Immortal Palace." Divine Lord Vajra smiled. He was quite kind to Nailan Shou. Chapter 790. Nailan Shou's beautiful eyes flashed. Others might not know, but as a tribulation-passing cultivator, how could she not know about the Divine Palace of Immortality? It was a heaven and earth immortal palace that was made by combining the best cultivation techniques of the Great Cultivation Era with the Spirit Paragon's powerful supernatural powers. In the human domain spirit world, only Spirit Paragons had the power to own a divine palace. Every divine palace was a movable starry sky palace. To put it bluntly, it was a super version of the immortal flying space shuttle, but not completely. To some extent, the Divine Palace was half a Spirit Paragon's avatar, or a natal magic treasure. It was integrated into a part of the inner world and combined with the best cultivation technique. The Divine Palace was also the most powerful mobile battleship in the human domain spirit world. Low-level cultivators could only look up to it, but high-level cultivators, especially those who had reached the tribulation-passing stage, dreamed of it. The Divine Palace was the dream of every tribulation-passing cultivator. It was a symbol of status, strength, and power. As a tribulation-passing cultivator, Nailan Shou was no exception, but she knew she was still far away. But this did not stop her from building a spirit palace similar to the Divine Palace. However, the Divine Palace was never open to the public. Without the Spirit Paragon's permission, no one could enter. Although the immortal Spirit Paragon's power was not at the level of the 3 immortal Paragons, he was one of the most powerful Spirit Paragons. Is the Divine Palace of Immortality open to the public? Nailan Shou asked suspiciously. "Fellow Taoist Nailan, the Divine Palace is a forbidden area for Spirit Paragons. How could it be open to the public? I invited you this time because Kunlun is qualified to enter the Divine Palace to see the rankings. All the top 1,000 cultivation companies in the Kuan Empire are invited," Divine King Kong explained. Nailan Shou finally understood and said, "I'm flattered by the Immortal Spirit Paragon's invitation. Please lead the way, fellow Taoist Luo." The Vajra Divine Monarch smiled and extended his hand. A metal disc floated out and rapidly grew in size. Every cultivation company is allowed to enter the Divine Palace. Fellow Daoist Nalan, why don't I see Senior Kunlun? The Senior Kunlun mentioned by Divine King Kong was Kunlun's ancestor, Kunlun Z. A late-stage tribulation passing cultivator. Ancestor is still in seclusion. I'm in Kunlun, I'm in charge. Nalan Shio replied. Very well, fellow Daoist Nalan, please. Nalan Shio nodded. She glanced behind her and said, those of you who are present can come. To save time, I won't inform the others. There were 40 to 50 people present, but there was a clear distinction between the strong and the weak among the cultivators. Some of those who did not have enough status and strength consciously did not go up. In addition to the people from Kunlun, Xiaoling River and Cherry Blossom Gauze were allowed to travel together. However, it was Voodoo King who fought for them to be allowed to tag along. Nalan Shou was very disappointed with Li Daochong and had great doubts about his strength. If it wasn't for Voodoo King's insistence, Nalan Shou was not prepared to provide special treatment to Li Daochong and the others. Old Witch Puppet, this is the last time I'm going to help Li Daochong. Keep an eye on these two girls. If anything goes wrong, you'll take full responsibility. As for Li Daochong, I don't think we should have too much hope. That kid's strength is not enough to make any big waves in the competition. It can't be helped that our Kunlun doesn't have a successor, Nalan Shou said to Voodoo King after agreeing to let Cherry Blossom Gauze and Xiaoling River accompany them. What else could the old man say? He could only nod and agree. Li Daochong had become the laughingstock of the entire Kuan Empire. In the revival round, he was the only seeded contestant who did not manage to defeat the revived contestants within a single point. In everyone's opinion, Li Daochong was riding on the coattails of the Jiuxuan Spirit Sage. Otherwise, his ranking on the Prodigy leaderboard would be questionable. After all, Li Daochong was not a citizen of Kuan and did not have any past achievements. The only concrete evidence was that he defeated the Yen family's butler, Huang Fu Shuo, on the Blue Bay Star. This old man was indeed famous back then, but he had not appeared in public for more than 100 years. As for how strong he was, no one knew if he had been injured in the past 100 years or if he had encountered any problems in his cultivation. Huang Fu Shuo did not say anything after that. Just based on this unconfirmed achievement, Li Daochong was ranked 46th on the Prodigy leaderboard in the Kuan Empire. Obviously, this was not enough to convince the public. Furthermore, his performance in the revival round was mediocre. After the finals began, not many people were interested in Li Daochong anymore, including the people of Kunlun. Under Nalan Shou's lead, the 30 people stepped onto the disc-shaped flying artifact that the Divine King Kong had summoned. The Divine King Kong did not fly into the sky. Instead, he flew in the other direction of Kunlun City. Fellow Daoist Nalan, other than your company, there are 2 other cultivator enterprises on the Kunlun planet who have been invited. I need to bring them along, the Divine King Kong explained. Please go ahead, fellow Daoist Luo. Nalan Shou nodded. Without the Divine King Kong's explanation, Nalan Shou knew that Kunlun was not the only one invited. The 3 major cultivator enterprises on the Kunlun planet were Tai Alchemy, Tian Yin Manufacturing, and Kunlun. Kunlun was once glorious. It was a super cultivator enterprise in the entire Kuan Empire, let alone the Kunlun planet. It was one of the top tycoons. Unfortunately, things were different now. Due to some internal reasons, Kunlun's competitiveness was getting weaker and weaker. It had been declining for the past 200 years. Now, it was ranked last among the 3 major cultivator enterprises on the Kunlun planet. Since Kunlun was invited, it was impossible for the other 2 companies, Tai Alchemy and Tian Yin Manufacturing, not to be invited. Kunlun was ranked between 55th and 59th in the Kuan Empire. Tai Alchemy had been one of the top 20 cultivator enterprises in the Kuan Empire for the past few years. Tian Manufacturing was ranked 33rd last year. Apart from the rankings, the talent pool of these two enterprises was much stronger than Kunlun's. Kunlun had been living off its past, relying on a group of old fellows to support it. If it were not for the two tribulation-passing cultivators, it would have fallen out of the top 100 long ago. It was all because of Kunlun Z and Nalan Shou. In terms of great cultivators, Kunlun was not inferior to Tai Alchemy and Tian Manufacturing. The ancestors of these two families only had two tribulation-passing cultivators. However, their younger generation was full of talent. The three heroes of Tian, Shang Tianda, Shang Tianhao, and Shang Tianlu were ranked 41st, 42nd, and 43rd respectively. The two saints of Tai, Xinghai, and Lai Yang were even more impressive. They were already at the early stage of the void refinement realm in their 30s, and their combat strength had reached the body integration realm. They were the real powerhouses ranked 28th and 34th respectively on the prodigy ranking. The Kunlun Heavy Industries was incomparable. They had finally found Li Daochong after much difficulty. Not to mention the doubts they had toward him, even if his strength was ranked 46th, he was still inferior to the weakest of the Tian'in three heroes. Moreover, before Li Daochong came, Kunlun did not even have a young person ranked in the top 200. Because of Kunlun's decline, Nalan Shou was unwilling to come into contact with the other two giants. Chapter 791. Every time they met, they would make irresponsible remarks about Kunlun's lack of talent. If it wasn't for the spiritual sage's invitation, Nalan Shou would definitely have rejected it. Divine Lord Vajra controlled the disc for a few minutes and arrived at Heavenly Sound Manufacturing's Heavenly Sound Pagoda, located in the southernmost part of Kunlun City. Heavenly Sound Manufacturing's great ancestor, Sunset Heaven Monarch, Yuluo, had been waiting for a long time with 29 higher-up. After Divine Lord Vajra and Sunset Heaven Monarch exchanged pleasantries, the latter led his people onto the disc. Nalan Shou and Sunset Heaven Monarch had never gotten along, so the former didn't intend to bother. However, Sunset Heaven Monarch didn't intend to miss the opportunity to attack Nalan Shou's weakness. Fairy Fenghua, long time no see. I've missed you, Yuluo greeted with a smile. Nalan Shou had no choice but to force a smile. Fellow Taoist you must be joking. You're so busy every day. How could you have the time to think about other things? Yuluo's smile didn't fade as he continued. I heard that Kunlun has recently recruited a group of talented youths who will do well in this competition. Kunlun has a successor. Congratulations. Nalan Shou immediately felt uncomfortable when she heard this. She felt extremely uncomfortable. Yuluo's words clearly had a hidden meaning. Fellow Taoist it's not important whether Kunlun does well or not. What's important is that this competition can select young cultivators who can truly enter the reincarnation road, Nalan Shou said lightly. Of course. I heard that your company has found an extremely talented and powerful young cultivator. I think he's called Li Daochong. Not long ago, this person caused a ruckus in Kunlun. He's so powerful. Our Heavenly Sound Manufacturing has never had a young cultivator with such great influence, Yuluo said with a smile. His influence is indeed great. No one can compare to him, an executive of Heavenly Sound Manufacturing added. Your company can find such a talent. It's really enviable. Ha! Yuluo couldn't help but laugh out loud. The other executives of Heavenly Sound Manufacturing also laughed. They looked at the people from Kunlun with ridicule and sympathy in their eyes. Everyone in Kunlun was furious, but there was nothing they could do. What the other party said was the truth and not a fabrication. Everyone in Kunlun couldn't help but look at Voodoo King. They all blamed this meritorious old man for making a mistake and bringing back such a flashy but impractical young man. Now, Kunlun had become the joke of the entire human realm. Nalan Sho was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She almost went berserk on the spot, but her rationality forced her to suppress her anger. She had to give face to a spiritual senior. With a cold snort, he turned around and walked to the other side of the disc. Out of sight, out of mind. You guys are the funny ones. Your whole family is funny. Amidst the laughter of the crowd, a young and tender voice berated angrily. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, only to see a 16 or 17-year-old pretty girl glaring angrily at Yuluo and the others. Little girl, who are you talking about? The cultivator that Tian-Yin had created, dressed as a security guard, asked. Tell me everything. Xiaoling River was fearless. Impudent, you damned girl. You have no respect for your elders. You deserve a slap. The security guard slapped her across the air. Bang! As soon as the security guard slapped her, a terrifying force rushed toward him. At the same time, it dispersed all the force he had thrown out and landed a heavy blow on his lower abdomen. What? The security guard in the void refinement stage spat out a mouthful of acid on the spot. His eyes were filled with horror. He had no idea who had attacked him. Could it be Nalan Sho? Among all the people present in Kunlun, no one had such terrifying strength other than Nalan Sho. Yuluo's expression changed. She narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at the white-robed woman standing beside the girl. Yuluo had noticed this woman when she boarded the flying disc magic treasure. She used her divine perception to check her, but she didn't find anything special. Then, she retracted her divine perception. When this woman attacked just now, Yuluo didn't react in time. The white-robed woman seemed to have used a very strange magic power. She had completely concealed her aura, and Yuluo didn't notice it. In fact, the strength of the cherry blossom gauze was naturally not comparable to that of a cultivator in the tribulation stage. However, she didn't use spiritual aura. It was fake spiritual aura. Under many layers of protection and camouflage, Yuluo didn't notice anything strange. Li Daochong's divine perception barrier, the Dharma robe made of extreme Yin crystal, several spiritual derivation formations, and a cultivation technique that the cherry blossom gauze could cultivate. These were the safeguards that Li Daochong had given her in order to continuously enhance the camouflage effect of the cherry blossom gauze. As long as the cherry blossom gauze didn't erupt with spiritual aura, even a cultivator in the tribulation stage might not be able to sense it. Fellow Taoist Nalan, aren't your subordinates a bit too much? Not only did they provoke you verbally, they even attacked you? Yuluo said in a deep voice. Her voice carried a strong impact. The cherry blossom gauze's head was buzzing. She could barely hold on. Voodoo King looked anxious. He kept shooting glances at Nalan Sho, hoping that she would be able to stop them. Unexpectedly, Nalan Sho's face was indifferent. She said faintly, Fellow Taoist, are the people following me my subordinates? Yuluo was a bit puzzled. She couldn't help but ask, so they're not your subordinates? Nalan Sho shrugged and didn't reply. However, her posture and expression were stronger than any affirmative answer. Since they're not your subordinates, then they have nothing to do with your company. Yuluo said coldly. How could the Sunset Heaven Monarch tolerate someone beating his dog in front of him? If this spread, how could he continue to be a Heaven Monarch? The only people present who could make Yuluo treat them as equals were Nalan Sho and the Diamond Divine Monarch. The others were just a bunch of ants in his eyes. Yuluo stretched out a finger and a blue rope shot out. For the first time, the cherry blossom gauze felt an irresistible pressure. She was completely suppressed. The rope automatically tied her up. The cherry blossom gauze's beautiful eyes were cold. Naturally, she refused to accept this. However, the blue rope wrapped tightly around her like a dragon. It also released spiritual pressure, making it impossible for her to move. Sister Ingsha! Xiaoling River cried out. She supported the cherry blossom gauze. Humph, on account of the spirit supremacy's invitation, I'll only punish you slightly. Otherwise, I'll cripple your cultivation. Yuluo snorted coldly. Why are you the only ones allowed to laugh at people, but we can't refute? Even if we fought, it was that security guard who attacked first. Sister Ingsha did it to protect me. Xiaoling River glared at Yuluo. Yuluo didn't even look at Xiaoling River. She didn't have the right to talk to him. The security guard finally recovered. He sneered at Xiaoling River and said, "Stupid girl, you laughed at a dog. Have you seen a dog refute you?" Xiaoling River was so angry that her whole body trembled. She couldn't control her emotions anymore. At this moment, Voodoo King's voice sounded in her mind. "Girl, don't say any more. If you continue, we won't be able to resolve this. It's normal for the cultivation world to follow the law of the jungle. You're still young. You'll understand in the future." With that, Voodoo King shot out a spiritual force to stabilize Xiaoling River. He was afraid that this girl would lose control and attack again. With her abilities, she couldn't even scratch someone's itch. In the end, she even gave him a reasonable excuse to beat her up. Tears welled up in Xiaoling River's eyes. The Vajra army looked on coldly. As long as they didn't offend a spirit supremacy, they could do whatever they wanted. Soon, they arrived at the headquarters of the Tai Gold Refinery Association, the Tai Heavenly Palace. It was a magnificent circular building suspended above the clouds. The great ancestor of the Tai Gold Refinery Association, Lord of Heaven Tai, personally led 30 executives onto the disk. This way, the 3 qualified cultivation companies on the Kunlun planet were all present. The Vajra army controlled the disk to fly up into the clouds. Soon, it passed through the atmosphere of the Kunlun planet and entered the dark night sky. The disk was enveloped by a transparent protective shield. It was as fast as lightning. After flying for a few minutes in space, the transmission spiritual array under the disk began to operate. It made a sound like gears turning. Ka-ka wung wung. A gap appeared in space. The disk brought everyone into it. Almost at the same time, the space crack disappeared as if it had never existed. Everyone felt a flash in front of their eyes. Then, they saw a huge silver metal palace suspended in space. From afar, it looked like a ferocious metal beast. It emitted a melodious and ancient aura. On the door, 4 words were engraved, 1,000 feet long, with golden light shining from them. Palace of Immortality. The huge door opened slowly. The disk flew in. Just when everyone thought it would be a metallic sight, the environment took a 180-degree turn. Behind the huge door, there were beautiful mountains and clear waters. Birds sang and flowers bloomed. There was no metallic smell at all. It was like a paradise on earth. After flying through the paradise, they entered a sea of fog. It was as ethereal as a fairy. Soon, an island suspended in the air appeared in front of everyone. In the center of the island, dozens of huge screens descended from the sky. Countless words flashed on each of the screens. The words were even moving. When they entered the island, everyone saw that the words were names. The Vajra army controlled the disk magic treasure and slowly landed on an empty platform on the island. The cultivators of Kunlun, Tai Gold Refinery, and Tianyin Gold Refinery Association walked down the disk. Everyone had a puzzled look on their faces. Everyone, the screens show the top 2 billion contestants who have obtained battle merits in the first round of the finals. The rankings will change according to the amount of battle merits accumulated. If the young cultivators you belong to enter the top 2 billion, you will see their names. The jade tablet beside the screen shows the names of the top 100,000 contestants. The flow of time in the Jiuquan Divine Realm is much slower than the outside world. 1 day in our world is equivalent to 1 month in the Jiuquan Divine Realm. In a moment, the exciting battle scenes in the Jiuquan Divine Realm will be broadcasted for everyone to see. There are also spirit wine and spirit fruits, prepared by the immortal spirit venerable. Everyone can enjoy as much as they want. The Vajra army finished the simple introduction. With a wave of his hand, the disc magic treasure flew into the air and stood upright. Then, the disc magic treasure turned into a huge spirit video screen. Several scenes appeared on it. There were battles between contestants, as well as battles where they hunted down dark ghosts. There were dozens of scenes. Only now did everyone understand why the immortal spirit venerable had invited them here. He wanted to know how the contestants were doing as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.